fantastic. This is GT racing right now.
He's got traction, he's got rid of the outside of both of them! Maloney!
Oh, he's taken Anderson! Anderson's up top here!
Oh my god! Oh! Big crash! Oh my goodness, half the field's gonna get rolled!
Six very close. These guys are want to make their way through the field very quickly. Oh, there we go! Oh no! That's massive! This is it! This is over! I can't believe this! Oh my god!
God, what?
This is the original esport racing game. This is iRacing.
When this calendar was first drafted up for this year, this was the weekend that everyone had circled. This is the one event, maybe even more important than the championship, that everybody wants to be a part of, that everybody wants to find a victory in. This is where heroes and legends are made, and this is where boys turn to men, men turn into legends. This is the street circuit that many consider one of the many fables across the world. This, of course, here in New South Wales, Mount Panorama Bathurst is arguably the devil's playground. It's arguably one of the greatest circuits that has ever been conjured up and existed. And my goodness me, are we in for some great V8SCOPS action here on the iRacing Esports Network, brought to you by SimSpeed TV, because this is qualifying. This is going to be the big challenge for tomorrow's big 1000 race. And we all know, everybody knows, that grid position may just mean everything when it comes to a race like this around a track like this. It's Jake Sperry here in the commentary booth, joined as ever by Reese Gardner. Reese, well, I'm back for a little bit at least, but this race, this race you cannot miss. You cannot underestimate just how good this track is and what this does. This is the pinnacle, the highlight of enduro season, a turbulent enduro season, and this qualifying is going to be so very important to get right, because you have to remember that all of this culminates to 1000 race. And this track really does say, well, if you're not going to be here and you're not up there inside the top X positions, then you are just another name in the book.
Yeah, that's how it all works. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the broadcast. We've got a fantastic weekend coming up for you all in terms of racing action. And Mount Panorama, I mean, you said it, Sperry, it is considered one of the greatest circuits in the Southern Hemisphere, if not the world. And it is the center for motor racing in Australia. But the point that you make about qualifying being so important, the mountain tends to choose people, doesn't it? People to fail, people to succeed, and qualifying is just the first stage of that. This is a narrow public road circuit built ostensibly as a scenic drive over the bald hills on the outskirts of Bathurst. Passing, to say the least, is difficult, and we can only see as the number 77 car goes around and the ERT machine too, those walls are incredibly close and they can bite you at any time.
Absolutely they can. At any given point, at any given time, you can be in a little bit of trouble. So I think these drivers understand and know that to be quick here today, you are going to have to make sure that you are driving at a level which is well within your boundaries, but still to a point where you can go and push and actually really find some of the best that this track has to offer. And so many teams do have the opportunity to go out to make sure that is an offering. So many teams are trying to make sure it works, but we've got the conditions here out on track right now. It's clear skies and it is hot. It's 26 degrees in the air. The track temp is almost eye-watering 59. It's 138 Fahrenheit track, which says to me that the sun is about 3 inches off of this road at the moment, Reese.
Yeah, the road is about the temperature of a medium well-done steak at the moment, which is nice in most circumstances, but not here, because the drivers will be extremely careful out there on track. It's slippery, it's warm, it plays havoc with your tires. If you make one mistake, then the tires are overheated, and you have to back off for almost the next half a lap to get them back down to a reasonable grippy temperature. So there's an awful lot that the drivers are dealing with out there in the lead up to qualifying. A little bit of a wind from the northwest as well, so that may affect drivers up Mountain Straight, I believe. Slight tailwind, but I think it'll largely be crosswinds.
It certainly will, and it's always difficult to know where that wind's coming from, and it can always change on a dime. And we've seen races here, especially last year, change on a dime, and in infamy that some people live on after big incidents which completely changed the way this race is run. You never quite know who's going to pick up a victory. It was Trick Sim Sport who found the win with Forzan El-Nabi and Ross Rizzo 1 year ago. That team's destiny, though, has changed and moved about, though. But we'll talk about that just a little bit later, because this is where we start talking about main challengers, main teams, main contenders who are going to be up looking for one of 15 places in the next 10 minutes or so, because we'll be moving over to an hour's open qualifying, and that big challenge coming up, which is that qualifying session. Top 15 go to a reverse shootout, so from 15th down to first, you get 1 lap only to determine the top 15 positions. You cannot look any further than car number 1, though. Jared Filsell and Jordan Ross. And for anyone who's looking at this and knows Jared Filsell, Walkinshaw, he's managed to get in for the racing that's going to be happening on Tuesday, the start of the E-Series. You look at Jared Filsell and you say, well, he's the best driver in the world at the moment when it comes to this vehicle. He is the number 1. I think Jordan Ross gives him a push. If anyone saw Spa AOSC, Jordan Ross can hold his own against Jared Filsell. This is a scary team, but one that you wouldn't normally see as scary on paper.
Yeah, certainly. Jordan Ross and Jared Filsell have proven to be a pretty good matchup so far. And Jared Filsell, obviously the driver who always seems to extract pace from any car, around any circuit, in any kind of conditions. He does make mistakes, but they are very few and far between. So this guy is definitely one that you want in your car. But like you said, you can't underrate Jordan Ross. He's certainly a talented boy at the wheel, isn't he?
Oh, he certainly is, and he is proving it more and more with the help that he's getting from the likes of, say, Jared Filsell and Ethan Grigg-Gault. And let's talk about Ethan Grigg-Gault for the moment. Teamed up once again with Ian Ford for this event, a very underrated pair, some may say. Both of them very good on that tactical fuel save. Both of them can make that push up through the order, and I think it's very, very telling to say right now that Ethan Grigg-Gault needs this result more rather than wants it. Remember, quite a lot of the top half field of drivers could not make it to the last round at Imola, so they've used a big drop week at a big round. They need big points now, and now more than ever.
Yeah, exactly. This middle stage here of the season and the end of the Enduros, which is the place Bathurst is taking this season, it's always been a high-stakes race, but the stakes are even higher now. So there's going to be quite a bit of drama, I think, to come out of this weekend, because we all know how incidents can spring up at the mountain and how top contenders can seemingly be taken out on a dime.
They certainly can. Let's talk Logitech G Ultimate Esports for a little bit. They were the winners 1 round ago when everyone seemingly disappeared and did not find their way to Italy and also to the Imola track. Dane Warren and Sam Blacklock for the Ultimate Esports team. They have been knocking on the door. They have some great drivers. The likes of Jackson Susan Harlow comes to mind, but Dane Warren, always the enigmatic, the savant-like character, knows that he has to be right up there at the highest level if he wants to challenge. We know he has the pace to do so. Sam Blacklock, a nice little compliment, I think, to Dane Warren's driving style, and the two of them will work well together as long as you don't put the likes of Sam Blacklock on strategy for you. I think this is a very nice little team. I think it will do very well, but do they have the consistent pace through their second driver being Sam Blacklock to consistently challenge at the top? That's the big asking point.
Yeah, that is the big asking point, and Altus Esports, I think that's always been one of the places where they've fallen down in SCOPS is just being there throughout the whole event, because, you know, like you said, they have the pace, they certainly have the racing ability, but things just have not gone their way the way I think a lot of people would have said they would. And speaking of the likes of Altus, I'm thinking of Jackson Suzlin Harlow, who won at Imola. He has become the youngest ever winner in SCOPS, 16 years, 5 months, and 5 days. So Altus, not only have they got talent, they got youth on their side too.
They certainly do, and if you talk to Jackson Susan Harlow, you do not expect him to sound like he is 16 years of age. He's got a big maturity for his age, and he's been thrusted into the limelight very early on, and someone who should be considered a future champion, all things consider. Keep an eye out, though, on a team that is coming up, started just this year. It's Omen Zero Esports. They've got the Omen HB sponsorship, and they are looking absolutely fantastic at the moment. Forzan El Nabi trying to get some good times in. He will be partnering up very, very strongly, as will Josh Anderson as well in the second car. You got El Nabi and Brady Myers, you've got Josh Anderson and Griffin Gardner. You got two very, very strong teams, and Omen are not coming into SCOPS to mess around. They want to come in and flash bang in the pan, get a big Bathurst victory from day one.
Yeah, well, we saw what their intentions were at Road Atlanta. Zero Esports doing incredibly well in the qualifying we had for that round, and also at Imola too. Like you said, a new team, but they've certainly got the names to put themselves into the record books. They do have last year's winner, Forzan El Nabi, and Josh Anderson and Griffin Gardner have proven that they are no slouches in these touring cars either.
No, they certainly have not proven that they are not slouches at all, so they're doing a very sterling job at the moment. You cannot look, though, past tradition sometimes, and Trans-Tasman Racing is the tradition, is the yardstick at the moment when it comes to sim racing in Australia. If you are considered a good team, can you go out there and consistently challenge with Trans-Tasman cars? Currently, the fastest in practice is the former TTL Esports car team. A nice little bit of a homage of orange there on that. That one being Richard Hampstead and Jake Maloney, who will be driving that. Always in with a shout. You never count these drivers out because they can bring it on their day. But you got the likes of Madison Down and Josh Muggleton. That team always very consistent, always up there, always looking to try and push. But then you've got people who've got themselves E-Series seats, like Emily Jones, who'll be going with Kurt Stenberg. You look down the order, this isn't the team that used to be 6 teams inside, 6 seat pairs of cars inside the top 10. This is a team now which is consolidated back down to 3, as we just see a big incident behind Josh Muggleton there. This is the team of, we've got to go push, we've got to go get something out of this that really does say that we are still one of the best teams in the world.
Yeah, Trans-Tasman have been on a bit of a rebuilding saga over the last year or so since they became a very large team a couple years ago. Then unfortunately there were some factors that resulted in a few fractures across the AusNZ sim racing community, and that's why we have all of these newer teams springing up now. But the likes of Josh Muggleton and Madison Down, they've been here from day one. They were some of the earliest active drivers in these cars on the iRacing service, and they have their fair share of success as well. So your yardstick comment there, Sperry, is quite succinct. They are the yardstick by which everyone judges themselves.
And someone who's looking to move up to that yardstick as we move just a couple of seconds away from qualifying. And you have to say that Pursuit Sim Racing are going to be that team that are starting to challenge here this year. James Mackay has been a sensation over the last 6 months. He has really stepped up his game and now probably puts himself as a top 10, top 15 driver in the world of Australian touring cars. You got the likes there of Andrew Gilliam, who he himself, no slouch, always up there, always getting things going as practice comes to a close and an hour of open qualifying trying to hit a top 15 spot is next up on the list. But you have to say, Pursuit are your dark horses for this race. They are the team that people are keeping quiet on, but they would probably be happy that not many people are talking about Pursuit.
Yeah, well, they have flown under the radar a bit. Andrew Gilliam obviously setting the time screens alight in practice sessions this year, so interesting to see what they can do come Bathurst time, but I do think the beneficial strategy is to approach it as quietly as possible, the race on Sunday, but we're not quite there yet, Sperry, as the field streaming out of the pits attest to.
Yes, of course, it is a big look out of pit road, and you try and find yourself with a drafting partner early on to make sure that your banker lap is in and good. We haven't talked about the likes of Evolution Racing Team of maybe Cooper Webster, who could turn up to the foreground after his victory at Sebring last year. He has very much disappeared back into the doldrums and has lost his lead, which has not been brilliant in terms of youngest race winner in Scots, but we'll see what he's going to be capable of doing for the future. He needs to find some good times, he needs to be up there and consistent, and I think Cooper Webster really does understand what needs to be done of him. He does want to kick on in the next 5 years. Maybe not a driver who gets there now, but certainly one to keep an eye out on as he'll look for improvements as he gets older.
Yes, indeed, and I think another driver who fits that description is Harley Haber, who is currently all the way at the front of the qualifying train in the Mach 1 Esports pink car, the number 21. Himself and his teammate, Stephen Varga, actually got up to 4th place in pre-qualifying, so that car's got an awful lot of pace under it. Not only that, they got a clear track in front of them to set the first time of qualifying.
Yeah, and that first time of qualifying becomes so important. Harley Haber behind the wheel of the Mark 1 Esports pink car. He is the Vegemite of sim racing. You either love him with a passion or you hate him with your guts. That is the sort of driver Harley Haber is. He leaves everything out there on the track. His heart is always on his sleeve, and for better or for worse, whether you like him, whether you hate him, you do have to respect that this kid is quick and he has some talent. Heads through turn 1, this very difficult Hell's Corner, before now heading up the hill for the very first time, the mountain straight, as they now make their way towards turn 2, of course the fabled crashing point of last year's race. Now you look at just how difficult this track's going to be. You look at what qualifying was last year. It was cold, and track times were 4-5 seconds quicker than they are now at this sweat box of a track. As up into the cutting comes Haber. Very nice, very neat, heading through that left-hander, passing the tennis court on the right-hand side, up the hill now, and now you're starting to head towards Griffin's Mount, and now through the parks as well, which is going to be this mid part of the lap, which is the full bore of the mountain.
Yeah, the full bore of the mountain coming alive here across the top, the dip through Metal Grate, and then up over the rise at McPhillamy Park, as close to the wall as you dare, and just a very brief lift and then back on the throttle to keep the car turning. You can see the skyline of Bathurst down in the valley below and down through the S's. Second gear, you've got to be very careful with your throttle application over these bumps in this section. You don't have any other place in the world where a 1,500 kilogram touring car feels every bit its weight as it does here. But now he's out onto Conrod Straight. They're going to reach nearly 300 kilometers an hour at the top of 6th when they come across the rise and into the chase, which Sperry, for a chicane designed to improve safety, it's certainly anything but.
It certainly is anything but. It is a eye-watering challenge as on the brakes goes Haber, looking to try and get nice and neat on this opening curve, and he clips it nicely, and through the second half he hugs the white line and gets a nice bit of curb under the Armour All Bridge. Now making sure you get to the final corner here, Murray's Bend, and trying to make sure that this one works out here. Harley Haber will set the first lap time. 2:07.9 is the benchmark here, and this is going to be a tough challenge. Like, say, of Jared Filsell, as Josh Nowak in the Swift Racing car is a bit of help at the moment to get through the final couple of corners, and across that line, Filsell does a 2:07.3. That's a worldie of a time. It goes 4/10 clear as the times now start to come in. El Nari moves up to second for Omen Zero Blue, and that is going to be crucial as those opening times get in on the board, and people now have themselves the full 55 minutes to find exactly what they're looking for.
5th place for the number 77, and Anderson in the 0 red car completes the top 3 at the moment. We've got more times flowing in. James Scott to 12th, Brenton Hobson to 7th, Sean Kelly goes 15th. And Richard Hamstead in the number 29 straight up to 2nd spot. So that number 29 means business.
Well, it's even Dane Warren, actually, who's moved up to 2nd for the Logitech G Altus Esports team, and that is just short, and it's a few hundredths of a second that we are talking about. Only 3 of them, so not much time at all for Dane Warren. He does have that ability to turn up. Richard Hamstead, yes, did go 2nd, which is now 3rd for Trans Tasman. So 4 different teams inside of the top 4. Team we didn't talk about in the early stages, Synergy Sim Racing. You got Brenton Hobson, Hobbo88, who has got himself a big drive with the Raw and will now look to try and make sure that he's got an E-Series challenge. On top of that E-Series challenge, he's looking for something good for Synergy, and he's got a big wiggle and traffic in front of him as well in the form of Wayne Burke, who has struggled this year, has to be said, for one performance. Is, though, in 10th position, which I think is good qualifying right now, but Brenton Hobson probably carrying Synergy at the moment.
Now, he's got a lot of pressure on his shoulders here as Hobbo, and he's certainly had some good performances in Enduros in the past, but that lap won't be complete for him. Meanwhile, looking further around the circuit, coming up across Skyline, the 066 leading a train of cars here. Matt Morris currently doesn't have a time on the sheets at the moment, so pressure's on for him, but he's got 2 Commodores bearing down on him through the S's.
Oh, he certainly does, and that is one of the worst things for the Jinx Shifter Trackstar racing car, is that when you have vehicles behind, the likes of Christian Smart in the Gone Rogue Motorsports machine, Sean Thompson in the KRF, the driver's seat car, you have to understand that you are up there and trying to make sure that the challenge is favourable for you. You've got to make sure that you've got track position out on this circuit, because if you are ever so slightly held up by a slower driver, there is not going to be much help for you as they get into chicane. I think Sean Thompson is finding out, and he's got to back out of it because there's contact there as Smart gets that hit, and I think that is a case to go down onto pit road. Everyone now finding pit road, and Adam Zeitinger in the Motum Altus Esports car will not be best pleased with that, as Corey Preston for Exto Gaming, well, he's gone around in pit road, and it's safe to say there's a logjam.
Yeah, that's a bit awkward there in pit road at the moment. It's an interesting pit entry that you have at Mount Panorama, and you know, it's got a couple of chicanes in it. It's downhill. It's got a few curbs of its own. It seems like a bit of an adventure. Well, you go in there too hard, you'll have a bit more than an adventure, won't you? Here's Jake Burton on board coming up Mountain Straight.
Yeah, and this is going to be the challenge up that mountain straight. Make sure that the time is working in the Is This 2015 powered by Virtual Racing School machine. Jake Burton has Sam Sutton as a teammate, just getting nice and neat into the cutting, on the brakes, up the hill, looking for a good time at the moment, and a good time would be a great time by Burton standards. Gets himself right up close to the wall through Griffin's Mountain, through this right-left section. That is the Lauren Heinrich wall, just heading through, and now through the likes of Solomon Park, McPhillamy Park, and the likes, to try and make sure that the lap is being strung together as you head through Skyline, coming up Brock Skyline, and down the hill you go. And just how important this lap is pretty much determined by this downhill section. You can lose so much time through something which seems on paper just like a few little squiggles. It's anything but. You've walked this track, Reese. You know that it is amazingly steep in terms of just how much of a drop it is.
Well, one of the cliches that you see people saying about Mount Panorama all the time is, oh, it's much steeper than it is on TV. It's easy to dismiss stuff like that, but no, it's 100% correct. I mean, the run up into Forest Elbow, looking back up at it, is an actual wall of tarmac. There is no way of telling how steep how much of an up and down feel this track has until you've actually been there and walked it yourself. And Jake Burton making very good use of all of those little dips and dives and crowns in the road. Remember, this is a public road for most of the year with a 60km/h speed limit regularly patrolled by police. So they're going a bit faster around here than they usually do. 2:08.2 for Burton.
That's 14th, so that's the 7th row at the moment. That's good enough just to get into that top 15 shootout, which is currently being guarded by the 088 Evolution Racing team car. That's James Scott and Kyle Stokes behind that. James Scott is there, and he has a massive buffer at the moment, it's safe to say, to 16th position. He's got all of the huge gap at the moment, Reese, of 2,000.
Wow, amazing. What incredible gaps we're seeing at the moment in the complete opposite way. I mean, it just goes to show how much competition is in this series once again. We say it almost every round, I know, but we wouldn't be saying it so much if it wasn't true. 2,000 separating the cutoff into the top 15 shootout. There's going to be a huge fight for that.
Oh, you are absolutely sure here is a lot of drivers trying to get their laps in, and onto that flying lap we see him start to go with 50 minutes under now left on the clock as they try and get those times. Your top 5, Jared Filsell, Dane Warren, Richard Hampstead, Forzan El Nabi and Josh Anderson is how they look at the moment. It doesn't matter where you are inside of the top 15 as long as you are inside of that top 15, and no more does that have to dead, then arguably the endurance specialist Marlon McMullen be teaming up with Brian Borg for this one for Premier Esports Racing Team. And Marlon, I think, stands out from the pack here, Reese, as a driver who knows what it takes to just stay calm, stay patient, and see the result come to you instead of going out there and actively chasing it.
Yes, indeed. They ended up getting a 4th place at the end of last year's race, but only by the slimmest of margins. They just slightly underfueled it and only lost out by a couple of thousandths, less than a car length at the line. Meanwhile, Dane Warren is on a good lap, so we'll keep an eye on him, as well as James Scott out there on the circuit at the moment. But Marlon McMullen, you can definitely bet on in these races, and given that he's pairing up with Brian Borg this time around, that sounds like a pretty good team to me.
It certainly does. In AOSC, they have been right up there, and this is why Marlon McMullen is fighting for the AOSC Championship at the moment. It's because he has been so very consistent over the course of his results, especially when it has come to their Enduros. But here, very much a top 15 is the only thing on the offering board for anyone who wants to get themselves right there. Dane Warren comes down the hill onto Conrad, and now this is going to be a big challenge to see if he can find just 0.03 of a second. As there's a big push, and there's a vehicle off there on the side as well. That's Josh Anderson staying out of the way as he's trying everything to get in on this one, as V8 Sleuth are also currently looking for a very good lap time as well. Here's Dane Warren though, round the final corner, looking to try and get it working, has a bit of a drift on through that section, and cross he goes. 207.338, he's got it by 4 thousandths.
Wow. Well, I mean, that's all you really need to take it by, don't you? They're at the top of the timesheets now in that 215 machine, and Jared, meanwhile, faster in the first sector, so the response is coming right away. Yeah, he has, so that's going to be an issue for him. Yeah, that's going to be no good. Lap's done, he's already backed off. That's a shame.
Yeah, and he had 3 bits of traffic, McMullen, Burton, and Brett Loxton for Zuva Racing, and we're talking about teams that are moving on forward. That marker, 14th and 15th, are tied on time. So Brett Loxton has tied Marlon McMullen exactly to the 1,000th of a second. And we've seen teams like Trans Tasman's 47, Emily Jones. She knocks herself into position 13. She'll be happy with that as they go through. And these times continue to tumble at the moment. We'll keep an eye throughout this hour on where that top 15 marker is. At the moment, 2:08.1 is the place you try and look. Currently on the outside looking in, Chris Coxhead for V8 Sleuth. He'll be pairing up probably with Guy Leach. And I think both of them are knocking on the door saying, let me in, let me in.
Let me in indeed, but we will have to keep an eye on some of the other times going on around here. James Mackay is currently setting some good times as we look at Jake Burton going through the chase briefly. Mackay currently sitting in 12th position with that 489 car, but let's see what he can do in the final sector of the lap. Up or down, this will probably define whether or not he dives into the pits or sticks it in through Murray's.
We think that he's on an outlap potentially here is James Mackay. He's got himself on a 208 flat at the moment, so he only a 10th safe right now, and this is the big worry I think a lot of drivers are having. What is a number that is safe? This track is 59 degrees and probably is not changing at any point in time. I cannot see a cloud in the sky, but Mackay will go on and probably look to either A, set a lap, or B, go out and start one, as we see him get a bit of a drift there through the final corner and cross the line. No dice, so he'll go out to start this lap going on, so Cooper Webster as well also starts. But you talk about drivers who maybe don't feel like they're safe. I think you need a third of a second here to really feel like you're safe. At the moment, I'd say 8th place, and that is the Trans-Tasman Racing 77 car. That's Madison down behind the wheel, is not safe at the moment. Has to keep going out and setting lap times where you have to say those in the top 7 are probably looking at just bragging rights at this stage.
Yeah, I'd say you'd be correct there as we take a look at Jake Burton's lap. It's been a pretty clean one from him so far. It'll be good for Sam and Jake to be able to get inside the top 15 here, because they certainly want to back up their win at Road Atlanta. But this session almost coming to a close. Those guys currently out on track, you're right. They are not going to go back out and expect any kind of improvement with the track the way it is. But those times in the top 8, yeah, you are correct. Those gaps, I would usually expect them to be lower. As the session goes on, we may see them decrease slightly, but at this rate, Jake Burton's only got one thing on his mind, and that is getting through Murray's cleanly. He's decided to stick with this one through the apex once again. Let's see what kind of time he can put on the board this time. It's going to be a low 208. He does improve, but they remain 17th, Sperry.
Yep, improves on time, but does not improve on position. So that was not part of the script there, so they've got to go even quicker than that. And now all they need to get themselves up through is 27 thousandths of a second, as I just see a time improve, and that is Ethan Grigalt improving and going up to 3rd there for the Evolution Racing 15 at the moment. That's just what they were looking for, and it's a very, very good, solid time from them as they start to try and challenge the other Evolution Racing team for top dog and that big number 1 on the vehicle of Jared Philcell's machine. So Greg Galt saying, don't forget about me. Remember, the order that they qualify in this top 15 determines the way they go onto their shootout. Chris Coxhead on a good lap at the moment, and he is the man on the bubble on the outside looking in 16th place. He needs
100th of a second around a 6.213 kilometer circuit. How hard could it be? Evidently incredibly hard, as we've seen many times in this session, and I think that's not going to do his lap very well. Cox said it seems to have done this. Cracknell, meanwhile, is on a good lap in the number 205 machine at the exit of the elbow. Just drivers dealing with a bit of understeer at the moment, Sperry. This incredibly hot track we're faced with means that entry into the corners is a bit more awkward than it usually is.
And you talk about rotation of these vehicles, it's very difficult. It's a car that has oversteer and understeer at the same time. It's very difficult with that locked rear axle, which always seemingly causes troubles for those who step into it for the first time. There's no vehicle quite like this one as he dives down onto the lane, so that lap time will not count for him. But Harley Haber is on a lap. He's currently in that danger zone in 9th place on a 207.9. probably needs a 207.7 to feel like he can be safe at the moment. Can number 21, young Harley Haber, trying to get some good times in here in Scops. 208 flat, though. He had a poor last sector and a poor last corner. Really cost him that final tenth, so he's got to go out there and do it all over again if he wants it, and if he wants to get that one to work in favor. Remember, even though this is a 1 hour session, the no escape rule still applies. If you bin it or you decide to escape out, that's it. Your qualifying session is done.
Yes, indeed, and another one of the rules that we put into the championship to make it a bit more true to real life. Jared Filsell's set purple sectors on this lap so far. Almost got unstuck in the middle of the chase, but this looks like a good run from Jared Filsell coming up to the final corner. You're currently sitting second. 207.342 is the time. And it's a 338 he'll want to beat. 207.451. No improvement once again. And Sperry, I think this is a mirror of what we've seen so many times in this championship over the last couple seasons. Once that opening salvo of lap times comes in, you don't see people making improvements in the second run. But we'll see what Josh Anderson can do.
We'll definitely see what he can do as he heads through the chase and now towards that final corner. And he gets nicely on the curb there for Omen Zero Esports Red. They've got 2 vehicles inside the top 6, which they'll be very happy. They are firmly cementing themselves as that second best team in terms of numbers inside of the top 10. 208 flat though, not good enough for the 36. There will have to find just a little bit more time at the moment. So we've seen how this track does develop. It hasn't got hotter, but what the track has done is that it has developed marbles. It has developed grip. It has developed a track surface, as we have seen 47 lap times come up on the board. So 47 vehicles driving around this track, getting their rubber in their tires into the surface of this track. It means that this track is a lot more difficult to drive than it was at a clean track state. They're hoping that there is a drop-off when there is way too much rubber on this track, and that will come at the end of the hour, that maybe we'll start to see some times tumble a little bit more. This mid part, though, it is expected that you will see the odd time go quicker.
Yeah, but only the odd time, because the drivers who don't believe that there's much of an improvement to be done, or they've already done what they felt is their best time given the conditions, they'll probably sit in the pits for a while, have a rest, just see what other people are doing out there, because so many times in motor racing, your actions depend on what everyone around you is doing. So you often see drivers moving as one in sessions like this. I mean, we only need to take a look at the start of the session to see that.
Yeah, we look at the start of the session and see exactly who is there and who is quick. Currently focusing on the car in 12th position at the moment. It's Shootout Sim Racing, who are looking to try and make that push with James Mackay. He looked pretty solid in his open laps, but he's now fallen back to 12th place overall, which is not safe at all. He's within 100th of a second at the moment of being put into trouble, as on the brakes he goes into the chase. He'll be a little cautious going through there because of the Omen Zero Esports yellow car of David Sanford, who currently is scored in 33rd position overall. Lap abandoned, down onto pit lane he will go. But it is worth talking about teams that are within the half a second that could make those pushes up through. Trick Sim Sport, haven't talked too much about them. They are the team that you've got to keep an eye out on. The blue and the black cars are trying to get through. So you got in 20th position Scott Zlowski, who's going out to start a flying lap right now. Michael Healy currently in the black machine, the 048, and both of them, I think, are thinking a top 15 is a huge scalp for them.
Yeah, it absolutely would. They would love to be able to recapture the highs of last time we were here with Trick, and they're certainly one of those teams you need to look out for when the races get long and the strategy really starts coming into play. I reckon if things go their way, they should have at least one car in the top 15, but I'd still, even if they didn't, I'd look out for them on race day.
Absolutely should. Team Hyperdrive, their first Bathurst 1000. They've got Kane Hewson behind the wheel at the moment of their machine, and Kane Hewson probably doesn't stand out as their top driver, their number one driver, but he is putting in a number one driver performance here for Team Hyperdrive. They're 23rd at the moment. They're half a second back. and they are pretty much on there with the likes of Talking and KRF, the driver's seat. I will say about Talking as well, that if Hayden Dodman put in regular practice and gave himself a team that really put himself behind him, we've seen before how he has great qualifyings. He could be right up there with an Ethan Griggolt or a Jared Filsell, mark my words.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. But I will say about the Talking guys, you know, they usually have an operation that people like to have a bit of a laugh at. They're not a huge fan of doing too much practice before races. They like to jump in and have fun. But amazingly enough, they are not the team who put in the least amount of laps for pre-qual. The car that put in the least amount of laps, 6 laps, was the 77 of Mad and Muggo. So they managed to just get in on only a few laps.
Yeah, exactly. So lap times are going to be so important, as some say that practice is just the thing. You can go out there, set one lap, and say day done, off to the pub. That's the Nigel Mansell way of driving. Don't do much practice. I'm off to have a round of golf. But I think some drivers here, and I think the top drivers, put in lap after lap after lap after lap, looking for something which says, well, this is what we're capable of, this is what we can do, and this is what is our ability to push and move forward as we get towards that halfway stage here in qualifying. You look right down the bottom end of the order, because there are teams that are important, and there are teams there that can show what they've got. You've got the likes of Wheelie Bins having a good job, as we're keeping an eye out on the 46 machine, I do believe it is, trying to make an improvement. This is V8 Sleuth Esports, who get a 208.777, moves them to the outside of the 14th row. So Guy Leach will be very happy with that work for the second of the V8 Sleuth cars, as we get a green sector coming in, and that is for the Trans-Tasman 47 and Emily Jones. So this is a good time. So my point gets thrown completely out the window. Jones is starting to find some good consistency, and Emery is going to push.
She certainly is. She has got a little bit of oversteer coming up over the rise, bit of traffic in front of her. Bruce Kiley in the Eaton Racing Synergy car. Looks like she might be gaining on him slightly. Don't know if he's on a lap, but Emily certainly won't want too many distractions as she comes down through the S's. You see the amount of gains made on the car in front through there. Jones pushing very hard down the mountain, and she'll get a nice little slipstream through here, I'd gather.
I would gather so much as well. As Bruce Kiley just in front for the Synergy Sim Racing Eaton Racing car. And now it's a case of not going to use too much. I'm going to pull over to one side, and Emily Jones, she's going to pull away down this section as they go and push forward. So Emily Jones knows that she's got a lot on her plate if she wants to try and make this one work. On the brakes they go, into the left rights they come along, like, and it's abandoned lap. She's gone a little bit too deep. That will cost her 1x instant point, and that's crucial. A lap around here has to be squeaky clean. No 4 tyres off the track at any given point in time. No barrier touched at any point in time. Any good lap has to be absolutely squeaky clean, and that's what makes these qualifying sessions so tough.
Yeah. It's not just a case of, oh, I just glanced off the wall, it's okay, it'll only cost me a few tenths. No, your entire lap time will be deleted. Brenton Hobson will be facing that issue himself coming up to the final corner. He's setting some good sectors at the moment, currently sitting in 10th. No, that's not going to work at all. Into the gravel trap on pit entry. At least he'll have a shorter route in. Or will he? Goodness, he's taking a couple of extra seconds to get the thing turned around, but for Brenton Hobson, certainly not what you'd want. How will Nick Cummings do driving with Sean Kelly in that silver and black Trans-Tasman machine? They currently sit in 19th position, and we'll be interested to see what kind of lap times come out of this one, especially on race day. It is a mid-208 for that machine, so no improvement.
No improvement there. Sorry about that. My internet's decided to jib out for a little bit of a second. But Zuva Racing currently scored in 15th position. They're tied at the moment with Evolution Racing Teams 088 and 14th, which now moves the Premier Esports Racing Team outside of that magical top 15 on a 208.136. So V8 Sleuth, Chris Cox said they're not in. Jake Burton and Sam Sutton aren't in. Nick Cummings in the Trans-Tasman car, not in either. Talking have moved up into 20th position, but 208.1 lows now. I think 208 flat doesn't even get you there soon. So I think 207.7s now are looking like they're not safe. And that's Omen Red and Pursuit Sim Racing in that third of a second that say we might not be safe. There are just some times that are tumbling just hundredth by hundredth.
Well, hundredth by hundredth is all you're going to need, I think, at the end of this, because as Madison Downs sets a purple first sector, let's take a look at the times in and around the cutoff. The top 15 are finished by a couple of 208.118s. Yep, they've set the exact same time again. Oh, nope, scratch that. One of them's just gone faster. There's been another jump in the top 15. Yeah, good lap.
Up to 9th position overall, 207.899, so a couple of tenths of a second, and Brett can say that he is one of the best there is, one of the best there was, and one of the best there ever will be. But keep an eye out on that Trans-Tasman 77, because Madison Down is on a flyer, and he's got draft coming down Conrod. So on that outside, Justin Wallace in the Race on Oz car, out of the way he goes. Madison is storming as he looks to try and make a move through in towards the chase. Probably the fastest corner in Australia Motorsports, 287 kilometers an hour on the brakes into the left, and he's got an ERT car behind in Stuart Vaughan that he's already made a way through on in the racing. But it is abandoned lap after a purple first sector. That has got to be a punch in the gut, because you're so quick, so quick. Oh, lap's gone at the top of the hill.
Yeah, it's a big shame for Madison. I noticed that I think he actually went a bit deep in the chase, because he got on the throttle a bit late, not until he was straight-lined to take the right-hander. So when a lap like that goes wrong right at the end, yeah, it certainly hurts, especially around a place like this.
Tell you what, though, there are some drivers that turn up and you think this is an all-Australian league. It very much isn't. The 111 Mark 1 Esports yellow car is in 44th place right now, being piloted by an IndyCar specialist in Adam Blocker, who makes his way down the chase and is trying to find a bit of time. They're currently behind the Rev It Up Racing Sports team and the Swift Racing team, who are 43rd and 42nd respectively. So starting from quite a bit further down the order is always going to be a little bit tougher, but we'll see what Blocker's going to be capable of doing here for Mark 1. It's nice to see a little bit of representation in terms of the nationalities in this sort of field.
Yeah, certainly is. It's great to see internationals come in and try their hand at Australian touring car racing. What of Marlon McMullen, though? He's about to come across the line, setting some good times. A 208.213, though, so that last sector was his undoing there. Oh my goodness, the Premier Esports guys will be scratching their heads, I think, at the moment. With the session nearly half over, they are just on the verge of getting into the shootout. Let's think about Guy Leach, though, in the number 46, sitting in 29th. He could make some improvements too, but goodness me, the rear end, I think, is going to try and make some improvements of its own to the landscaping of the track.
Well, if you can find just a tenth and a half of a second, he can jump 6 places, because there are 6 teams in front of him, all on a 208.6 of some variety, and there is a variety of teams who find themselves at that mark, but it's 208.1s and 208 flats, which I think is what everyone is trying to get to at the moment, as he just runs a little slightly bit wide there, potentially heading through that penultimate section there at the chase. So this is an abandoned lap for him at the moment. Team that we don't really talk about at the moment, as Forzan El Nabi goes purple on the first sector. So I was going to talk about FT1 for a moment, but scratch that, Forzan's gone purple.
Yeah, and purple in Sector 1, certainly something to be proud of, but if he sets it purple in Sector 2, then we'll know that it's a good lap. Actually, second sector is green, so still a good time here from Forzan El Nabi coming across the top. That 097 car is still in 5th. Sorry, Sperry.
No, it's all right. It's mighty fine as he hits now the downhill section of the track. How good is he through here? He's nice and neat, which I think a lot of drivers struggle with. Has he clipped the wall on that outside, though? He was mighty close to it. He's running as if he's driving through the wall ever so slightly, Ayrton Senna style down the mountain. And now, how good is this lap? How good is this push? Because Forzan is going like a man possessed. He's got slight bits of draft. Got to be careful, though. There's a slow vehicle of Nick Cummings. He's got to negotiate, and he might catch him at just the wrong time. Does well, gets the toe, and now through the fastest corner in Australian Motorsports once again. And he's going up there, and he hits the brakes a lot earlier than, say, Madison Down did, because he's trying to open out the exit, but he gets so much curb heading through this section. I think this is a abandoned lap. I think this lap's not good enough, but he'll continue on it. No. Oh, that was very risky and very dangerous there with the rev-it-up car of Jeremiah Morton. Gets around, but just like that, it was just that case of I didn't get a good chase corner and lap abandoned again after what was a minute and 40 of great driving.
Yeah, it's a shame there for Forzan, but that's another one of the things you got to look out for at the chase as we follow the 071, the sister Zero Esports car. That curb in the left-hander at the chase will just see bouncing off it there in the 071. You can't take too much of that because it unsettles the car just a mite too much, and that's another abandoned lap there. Unfortunately, a lot of people still testing the waters just to see what the track is like at the moment.
Certainly are trying to test those waters. Someone who has as well is Brenton Hobson, who has moved up one position now into 9th overall on a 207.865. So there is time in the track. We can tell you there is time in the track. The top 5 have remained unchanged, unmoved in the last 25 minutes or so, but it's these lower positions which are jumping up a little bit. Teams that are maybe not feeling like they're safe include the likes of Synergy, Trans-Tasman, Zuva Racing, One Performance, Shoot, got Evolution Racing Team in there on the bubble, and the likes on the outside looking in. Maybe, just maybe, you need to find that magical lap. James Scott will not find his lap at this point in time, but maybe I think for some drivers, take a breather, take a 5-10 minutes now, because there's no point trying to race it out when everyone's on the laps trying to get going. Maybe come at it for the last 15 minutes, reinvigorated, fresh energy as Mackay just has himself a moment out on track.
It wasn't a moment. It wasn't a moment, Sperry. He's violated the rules of the session by escaping back to the pits. And he just improved to 12th place as well. So that Pursuit Sim Racing car is out of the session.
Well, that is one car that will not improve. A car that did was Madison Downs, Trans-Tasman 77, which just moved up into 6th position. So that's going to be very, very crucial out on track. So big issues as Emily Jones is now around as well. As she's had a huge moment, and that is right up the mountain section. That is so difficult to turn around.
Yeah, it is. It looks like it's up at near the rise at McPhillamy. Motum simulation replay then of what happened. It was at Forest Elbow, so still at that section of the circuit where there's not much room to move. Nice clean run through the S's, but there was a car with problems in front of her, an engine blown, so that obviously threw her off. It was hollow, and there was contact, so that just goes to show you, you don't want to do too much side-by-side running there.
I don't think it was Hobson. I think it was definitely a different car. It was a yellow variety car, so it could have been any old thing. Scott Nolan in the other Synergy car, so the Trackstar Racing 018. So right team, wrong driver, so a case of mistaken identity. I'm just looking at this. Emily Jones might just have to call for the tow here and say that's race done, because she is parked at the moment at the Forest Elbow and probably may just have to ask for an escape or just a little bit of clear track, because that vehicle is very heavily damaged and is now going to pose a danger to all other drivers who are on laps. So there will be some yellow flags flying. There's a slow vehicle going through, but this is going to be squeaky bum time, it has to be said, for Emily Jones.
Yeah, well, you can already see that the car has a lack of straight line stability from that damage. She is really struggling with that thing. Almost like it wants to veer left, and she's just trying to keep it on the straight and narrow, get back to pits as soon as possible. Fortunately, there aren't any other cars out there on that section of the circuit, so Emily will have a nice clear run back to the pits, but still, that's a setback that she and Kurt Stenberg didn't need.
Well, it's not the setback that was wanted, but very much will have. And As Jake Burton is on a lap at the moment in Is This 2015, powered by Virtual Racing School machine. As on the brakes they go as things go on, as we continue with some good racing action, or qualifying action at the moment here, Reese.
Yes, indeed, and it looks like bringing it in then is Jake Burton. So to another car out on the circuit then, just coming out of Forest Elbow, the Synergy car that we were looking at earlier, just letting one of the Zuva entries go. This is the part of the session where they've had a good amount of time. Oh, hello indeed, Sperry.
No, I've just seen Corey Preston here do something absolutely bizarre out on track. So he rounds the final corner and he spins it through that section, but he's decided instead of going down onto pit road the conventional method, he's just slipped through the escape road and dived down into pit road that way. So bit of ingenuity there from Corey Preston to quickly get some fresh tyres going.
Yeah, I don't know how kindly that would have been looked upon in real life, but as you can see, yep, that was almost spotless. But yeah, quite the serendipitous way to get back into the pits, I'd say.
Oh, very serendipitous. He's done very, very well to get himself down onto pit road. So he'll be looking to try and get some more times. He's currently classed as being in 23rd position overall at the moment. Your top 15 with 20 minutes to go are like this. It is Logitech G Altus Esports in control at the top of the timing stands. Evolution Racing Team are second with Jared Philcell's effort. Evolution Racing Team's 15 car are third at the moment with Trans-Tasman in fourth position with Richard Hampstead. Omen are fifth with the second of the Trans-Tasman cars with Madison Down in sixth place. Omen Esports Red in seventh. Shoot Sim Racing in eighth position through Andrew Gilliam. Synergy Sim Racing are ninth through Brenton Hobson, 10th for Zuva Racing at the moment. Then you've got Mark 1 in 11th, Pursuit Sim Racing second car in 12th, One Performance 13th, Trans-Tasman in 14th, and the ERT 088 is currently the team on the bubble. And get this, because Marlon McMullen is finding time out on track, but he is 2 thousandths of a second short on his last lap through.
2 thousandths. Well, it's very easy to find 2 thousandths around Mount Panorama if you play your cards right, but in the process you may lose much more. It's a smooth lap from Marlon so far. Seems like he's just feeling out the track temperature at the moment. There's been no change in that respect, but an in-lap looks like what it seems Marlon McMullen is on at the moment, because he's not in any hurry to get that thing to the pits.
Well, very much. When you've got a hot track like this, it's a case of you get one good lap in, then you look at the tyres, okay, they're gone, and you've got to try and make sure that you are in on that in-lap with fresh tyres. Back out again. Brenton Hobson, though, trying to improve on 9th position, does not, but we keep an eye out on times out on track, because we got Coxhead even trying to go from 17th upwards through this field, heading through the chase and looking for something more here in the V8 Sleuth car. Just 0.04 of a second only, half a tenth to find there or thereabouts on the brakes into the final corner, and it's a missed apex, and it's at the worst possible time, and it's a lap that has got a little bit of bottle to it because 0.2 went down the drain.
Oh, it's a shame there for Coxhead, still within shooting range of that top 15 cutoff, so they do still have a few more opportunities. But as we come up on 17 minutes to go in the session, one of the points that we should probably raise here, Sperry, is the sheer length of lap time, as that hyperdrive car running into some dramas, and the wheelie bins car decided to kick the tail out as well. But the length of the lap around here, 2 minutes and 7 seconds and higher in these conditions. If you want to be able to do an outlap, do a hot lap, come back to the pits, you only have, I'd say, 3, maybe 4 opportunities at doing that at the most.
That means there's not going to be many more chances to get those lap times out. The good thing, though, here, Reese, about open qualifying is that when the times come in, that the final lap is going to be counted once the hour comes in. And there's Kane Houston having a huge moment. Good save, sir, there from the Team Hyperdrive car And you have to really open up and say at this stage, if you're going to look for a time, and this track is coming back to drivers, you have to make sure you do so probably at the last possible moment. So when that clock strikes 1 second left, you've got to be crossing that start-finish line.
Yeah, you want to extend it as much as possible, but of course, as we saw at a certain high-level open wheel race a couple of weeks ago, sometimes that can catch people out. Fortunately, at Bathurst, the draft is not as important because you got that huge section on top of the mountain through which to gain time. Corey Preston, meanwhile, in the XG car, we've seen a good time coming out of him so far on this lap. See what he can do.
Well, he's currently scored in 24th position. He's half a second off of the magical 15th place. So good little run heading through that left-right section at the chase. Good attempt on the exit. The traffic will dive down onto pit road. That's Michael Healy, who is 1 position in front of him. So at the very least, he's looking to try and gain that. And that's nice and tight. And he's not going to spin it on this exit. Preston, 2:08.2. Good enough to move up to 19th. He now only needs to find a 10th.
That's good. That's very good. That's exactly what Preston needed, and a little bit of use of the escape road there. Well, the car has done its job for now. He just needs to get it back to the pits and make sure he gets at least one more run in.
At least one more to try and find that extra 10th and a bit. Corey Preston will be very happy with the 038 and what that is capable of doing. He's running this race with Bradley Ratu, so those two a good team as Forzan El Nabi out there on a strong lap across the line. 2:07.689. He found, get this, 0.004 of a second improvement.
Oh, goodness me. And that barely did anything to the end position. So I don't know if we'll see any more change up the very top of the field. Richard Hampstead, meanwhile, improving as well, but they remain in 4th place. It's now down to a 2:07.56 for those guys. The track is starting to get quicker again. Cars haven't been running on it in anger for a bit, aside from a few runners trying to improve their times. So this is when everyone comes out again and sees what the track has to offer them.
And well, there are some drivers looking at you, Pursuits 489 and James Mackay, which says, okay, you're not going any quicker. You may fall outside of the top 15. You've got 14 minutes to make sure that you get this one right, as Andrew Gilliam is also looking to try and set up a lap, I think, potentially at the moment, as he looks to go and start his flying lap. So these times are out there and drivers are very much willing and able to go out and improve those times. Anyone looking to improve times now is looking for one thing inside that top 15, that track position for the final racing. And this is the question you have to ask yourself. Do you want to go in at position 3 or 4 when that track is a little bit more worn in? Or do you want to be going in at 12th, 13th, 14th, risk not making it, but have a clean track to start?
That is the dilemma that they're all facing out here at the moment. And a good sector from James Scott, but the nature of the track certainly plays a huge influence on how the drivers approach this qualifying session. I mean, if it were me, I'd prefer to just have a clear track in front of me. I don't want a car in front of me trying to get themselves back to the pits or set themselves up for a lap when I'm there trying to hit all of my marks. And the amount of marks that you have to hit to even get around this place cleanly, you run out of ways to count them on all your fingers and toes. But this 888 car, another green sector for them, Sperry, so let's see what James Scott can do.
Well, look at who's in front of them. It's Stuart Vaughan's the Evolution Racing team are coordinating this run here. And this is what they do as a team so well. They work as a team to make sure they get as many drivers up inside a certain value that they need. Today's 15, what they want, and they have 3 vehicles inside of that top 15. They can be so happy with the way that they've worked, and James Scott has really come on leaps and bounds over the last month or so. Look at the draft that he's using. He's on a green lap and he'll use all of it here as to the left-hand side he goes. And just like this, now the only thing he can get wrong is the final 2 corners, and he is flying through this section, smacking the brakes a little early as he gets himself nice and tight on that opening curve. Now through the second, and this is looking like it's going to be an improvement on this lap, but by how much? because he knows that he only needs 300ths of a second to move past Emily Jones in the 47 Trans-Tasman car. Where is the time coming? James Scott, 2:08.2. The final bit of the lap fell away. What happened down the mountain there? It looked good.
Oh, man. And meanwhile, back out on track, the number 1 is out. Let's see if he can try and assault. As Ethan Grigalt, we're hearing, is on a really good lap at the moment. Could be challenging. 3 green sectors so far. Could be a challenge for the top here, Sperry.
Certainly could, and down the mountain he will go at Conrad, and he's got no draft help through this section, so he's got to rile on it all on his own. He's got under the Jim Beam Bridge. Now he comes under the Mitsubishi Fuso Bridge, and the next push is going to be at the Chase. So how quick is he going? 285, 286. He's definitely down on power on those compared at 287, but I think his vehicle is more mountain-based as he pushes through this outside section. Oh, he got all of the curb. He went full Tony Hawk. Did he get an incident point? Well, we'll have to see as he crosses the line. He gets on the brake, sliding it in to the final corner. It's a scruffy end to a great lap. Ethan Grigalt, 2:07.7 it cost him.
Oh, it did by 2/10 as well, possibly more considering that he was up. Meanwhile, purple middle sector from Madison down, currently sitting in 6th place in the number 77. He's only got a couple of corners left to stake his claim. We'll see if the time falls away in the final sector this time.
Well, we certainly will see. Madison down, final corner. The times are starting to knock on the door. Here comes Madison down, 2:07.668. Gains the position over Oman. 2 Trans-Tasman cars now inside of the top 5. That is lovely jubbly from Trans-Tasman. They know what they're capable of, and they are going to be very happy that they've got 2 inside the top 5.
They certainly will. Adam Blocker on a good lap. The IndyCar regular making an appearance for Mach 1. See how the end of this lap goes for him in the 111. It looked like a pretty clean one so far. Green sectors and a personal best for him. So down in 43rd position currently. Where will they go to? It's a 2:09.4.
43rd. They'll go to 43rd position.
Ah, okay. He did improve, though.
I mean, he did. Well, we're hearing Brett Loxton as well here. On a pretty good lap is the words that we're getting from our director in our ears as he is, as we're looking at this, Jake Burton has suddenly found a bit of magic over this lap. He's now into 12th position. That bumps Evolution Racing Team outside of the top 15. Trans-Tasman are on the bubble as we're keeping an eye on, there's a talking car. It's Mitchell McLeod. He's around and, well, surprises? I'm not sure there's many.
No, well, I mean, it looked like McLeod was backing off and just got into the wall, and then there was nothing he could do to get out of it. So it looks like he did run a bit wide there and just letting off the gas to let some guys go. And unfortunately, the wall said, "Hello, friend. I'd like to take you in as a special offer."
Well, the offer was crash into me and spend 5 minutes trying to get back out and getting a lap sorted again. And he said, yes, as Corey Preston is once again on another good lap here. So 2:08.284 was what he got so far. He needs 2:08 flat late, and we've seen how he's found a big chunk of time in 0.4 of a second. He's now got to keep finding it, 0.2, but you're not going to find it if you're all over the curb like that at the Chase. I think that may have just killed all the time in the car as he pushes towards the final corner. He will finish the lap to see if he improves. Rifts it slightly, gets the wheels out of the final corner, now makes that run, that short run to the line, 2:08.206. He did improve, but you felt it would have been positions there, Reese, if he didn't balk that final couple of corners.
Yeah, definitely seemed like the, oh no, that's no way to start the end lap there for Preston. Very unfortunate, but he'll get that thing back, and it's only going to be one more chance that he'll have to get into that top 15, but
Hampstead's got third.
If you mess up right at the final sector, it's not a good look, as yes, Hampstead does go to third. Interesting time there, 2:07.5.
Yeah, 2:07.5, a big 2:07.5 as well. Jumps Evolution Racing Team and Ethan Grigalt, which is crucial in terms of track position. for that racing that we've got going on. So now you start looking and saying, well, we're quick, but now we've got to gain positions, and we've got to gain positions quickly. And I think every driver who's out there on track is feeling like, okay, this is now the time where we have to get as high as we possibly can into positions. Jake Burton, Emily Jones, both coming out on track at exactly the same time. This is great strategy from Trans-Tasman. They're 15th. They've got a car in front of them that's gone slightly quicker than them. Use them as draft throughout the entirety of the lap and gain your time.
Yep, great strategy there. Very well thought out as we take a look at James Scott just start a lap in the 088 machine. And he is on just the outside of the cusp. So this is going to be a big lap here for James Scott. It's going to be, I reckon, the last opportunity he'll get. Only 5 minutes left in the session. Don't think there's going to be enough time to finish this lap, do an in-lap, then do an out-lap and start one again.
Well, there isn't. That's the factor. If you're out there on track now, you are out there for good. You will not find any more improvements. You will have to do 2 laps on this set of tyres. So, got to get in now and get back out again very, very quickly. You almost have to do a pit stop here to try and get those times to improve. And looking at drivers who are trying to improve out there right now, one of them is Damien Johnstone at the moment in the 38, as we do catch a car currently going around. That is James Scott's 088. He is on the bubble at the moment, trying to find improvements. Gone Rogue did find improvements. They're up to 38th position, the outside of the 19th row. But now it becomes who makes it into this top 15. And I think Evolution Racing Team are really, really trying to get there. As is Premier, V8 Sleuth. Those 3 teams are split 16th, 17th, 18th by 0.004 of a second.
Yeah, so it's these last laps that will define whether or not they end up getting in, and I think it might already be over for the 088 because he did glance off the wall up the top, did James Scott, so we might not see that 088 in the shootout. Meanwhile, the Zuva 209 we're looking at, currently sitting in 10th. Brett Loxton will want to make some improvements there, and the gaps between himself and the car in front of him on the timesheets, not that great. It's only a few hundredths of a second between himself and the 88 just up ahead of him. Oh, slight little twitch over the top, but Brett Loxton has had plenty of experience in these cars in an endurance context. He certainly put on a show. Green 2 and 3 sector for Brett Loxton, so this may be an improvement. He just needs to hook up those last couple corners, which, as we've seen, Sperry, they've put many drivers off what would otherwise be good laps.
Yeah, and it's a very good lap, which I think everyone's hoping to try and find, which Zuva Racing at the moment heading down Conrad are trying to get to. We'll see what's going to happen as we're getting purple sectors coming in from the 77 Tasman car. Jared Filsell as well, also setting some purple sectors. So now it's a case of everyone's finding time. Remember, Jared Filsell in second only needs 4,000. I think he clipped the wall there, coming down the mountain. And that might just be abandoned ship, abandoned lap. He could have so easily have been the bench setter and have gone from dead last, as he did a year ago here at Mount Panorama, and he got pole position outright. So Madison Downs trying to get going. Loxton does improve his time. He moves up to 9th on a 2:07.830. Keep an eye on that 77. We've got 2.5 minutes left to go as they push themselves through. And Madison is ragging on that machine, trying to put the power down. Every little inch he tries to find could just be magic as he finds a way through the final corner. Is there improvements on a 2:07.6? It looked good up the mountain. It's a 2:07.7. The lap fell away.
Oh, right at the very end, once again, huge shame, and that's the number 1 car going into the pits. There's been a problem for Marlon McMullen up the top involving Kane Hewson and the Team Hyperdrive machine. You have to go back a bit here, Jay, to see what happened with this modem simulation replay. Just looks to me like Kane was trying his best to stay out of the way, but ended up coming back onto the track right up the top there, and Marlon McMullen had nowhere to go. That's his last opportunity for a lap, absolutely ruined.
Yep, and that last chance ruined, and McMullen will go no higher than 17th position, and that will be a big kick in the teeth on the outside, and very much looking in But looking in at the moment is the 208 V8 Sleuth Esports team, looking to try and find time, and they will have one lap to go and make it happen. Backing off at the moment, trying to save as much tyre as possible, because this will be their last shot at glory. The 088 still out there on track, trying to find something in the tyres. They've got Cooper Webster trying to help out, who's currently down in 26th position. Say, come on, we can push you inside that top 15 if we very much try. So this is going to be the crucial factor. Who's got what they have to make these final laps work? Because there is no more respite for those out on track looking for times, trying to find them. You've got 45 seconds to get over the line and get one more lap in the book. Do you feel that you are safe under a sub 208? Pursuit, despite escaping early, are going to be hoping that teams like V8 Sleuth, maybe even Exto Gaming, do not find the improvements that are needed. Maybe even the Trans-Tasman 87 machine, which has Sean Kelly behind the wheel. Kelly, who has been up there in the top 10 of qualifying so often when it's come to this sort of racing, but today at Mount Panorama, it's not come together for him. This is where he starts to find times. Kelly cannot get him there. Purple lap coming in for Forzen El Nabi now, here as he tries to push. The timer will now expire. Who's the last over the line? Answer is not going to be Brenton Hobson. So Hobson crosses the line, 2:07.7. He goes 7th. Brenton Hobson with a great qualifying lap time as he finds the big improvement late in the day. But will not go any quicker. As now a lock up there for El Nabi. Sean Kelly crosses the line. 2:08.309 improves time, but crucially not position. He stays on the outside looking in. El Nabi, what have you got? 2:07.6, 2:07.598. He moves up to 5th, so he jumps the Trans-Tasman car. And Madison down, which will be very, very good indeed. Look at Corey Preston though. He needs to find a good time. There's no boot on the rear of that vehicle. It looks very heavily damaged. I don't think that he'll be able to find much improvement with the damage that he's got. And no, he dives down onto pit road at the moment. But James Scott, we focus on this, needs 400th vehicle. The Exto Gaming car goes off there, and that's going to be a distraction for Scott, as that was not part of the plan. Guy Leach goes off in the background as well. James Scott, you need 400s. You need 400s through the final corner. You need all the help you can get from Cooper Webster. James Scott finds 208 flat. He's not done it. He's not done it. He's 4,000 short. He's on the outside looking in. He gave everything, but he was 4,000 short. And heartbreak for ERT and James Scott and Carl Stokes. They're on the outside looking in as qualifying comes to a close.
4 thousandths of a second is how much they missed out on, but for one ERT car ending in heartbreak, it could end up with another jumping up. How will Ethan Griggold go at the line? Currently sitting 4th at 2:07.6, not going to improve. A little bit of a party going on in the pits there in the background apparently, but more times should be coming in soonish.
No, that's it.
No, that's it. They're all done.
And this is how the top 15 go through. So Logitech G Ultra Esports will start as the final vehicle to set a time. Evolution Racing Team will go from 2nd with Jared Filsell. Trans-Tasman got 3rd in this qualifying session with the 2nd Evolution Racing Team car in 4th. Omen Zero Esports Blue start 5th currently, with Trans-Tasman 6th, and Sinji Sim Racing, great time from Brenton Hobson, verifying his seat in the E-Series with 7th place. Omen Zero Esports Red go from 8th with Pursuit Sim Racing 9th and Zuva Racing in 10th. Mark 1 11th with Is This 2015 powered by the Virtual Racing School in 12th. Shoot Sim Racing 2 13th. One Performance Racing 14th, and making it through on the bubble is Emily Jones for Trans-Tasman, giving them the most vehicles for the 2nd straight year inside of the top 15. They are 15th, just ahead of Evolution Racing 088 in 16th. As we go on through Premier Esports Racing Team 17th, V8 Sleuth Esports 18th, Exto Game Motorsports Red 19th, Trans-Tasman Racing rounding out the top 20. Reese, the rest of the drivers from here are where they are going to start for the big race tomorrow.
Yes, indeed. So Talk Inc. is going to start from 21st. Trick Sim Sports Blue from 22nd. Jamie McKnight and Cooper Webster are going to make it from 23rd. And we'll go through the rest of those on your screen. But Sperry, my goodness, Mount Panorama always turns it up, even when the objective is simply to set the fastest time possible.
Oh, it absolutely does. And let's not forget that we have support racing action coming to you in just a moment's time, because the SSA Sprint Series is coming to you in just a moment's time. We're going to step away here on the iRacing Esports Network, brought to you by SimSpeed TV. We will be back with more action for you after this.
40 of the best sim racers, $100,000 on the line. Who will rise to the challenge? This is the most competitive and sought-after season in iRacing World Championship history. This is where legends are made. This is the Porsche Esports Super Cup.
Green flag back in the air. 2 more laps to go.
8 drivers, 4 races. These are the moments that define champions.
Zach Novak, final time to the start finish line, takes the checkered flag and wins.
Who will reach the peak? The battle begins now. Let's go playoff racing!
iRacing, you wanted the best, you got them 4 abreast. Often imitated, never duplicated. The greatest show on dirt, the World of Outlaws.
Green flag back in the air. 2 more laps to go.
8 drivers, 4 races. These are the moments that define champions.
Zach Novak, final time to the start-finish line, takes the checkered flag and wins.
Who will reach the peak? The battle begins now. Let's go playoff racing!
"40 of the best sim racers, $100,000 on the line. Who will rise to the challenge?" This is the most competitive and sought-after season in iRacing World Championship history. This is where legends are made. This is the Porsche Esports Super Cup.
This is fantastic. This is GT racing right now. He's got traction. He's got rid of the outside of both of them. Maloney. Oh, he's taken Anderson. Anderson's up to Oh my God. Oh, big crash. Oh my goodness. Half the field's going to get rolled.
Six very close. These guys are going to want to make their way through the field very quickly. Oh, here we go. Oh no. That's massive. This is it. This is over. I can't believe this. Oh my God.
God, what?
This is the original esport racing game. This is iRacing.
We move from touring car action over to the GTs as Sprint Series racing here in Australasia gets itself into some brilliant action. But for the time being, I'm going to step aside your commentary team for this next race, David Haynes and Reese Gardner. Reese?
Hello, everyone. Thank you very much, Sperry. Yes, the Epiroc Sprint Series Australia. Special round here at Mount Panorama to support the V8SCOPS Bathurst 1000. Myself being Reese Gardner and David Haynes alongside me. And David, the last couple of races we've seen of this series absolutely turning it up. And Alexander Bird in that fight for the title has got a lot of fighting on his way.
Yeah, exactly. G'day. It's been fantastic racing, no doubt. These cars, these GTE machines, always give us that close door-to-door racing that is also familiar to V8SCOPS watchers. So it will be very, very interesting here on hallowed ground at Mount Panorama. We've got the weather in front of us there. 28 or so degrees track temperature. That's a little bit easier for our drivers to focus on.
It certainly is. And before we go into the driver's starting grid, a message from our sponsor.
40 of the best sim racers, $100,000 on the line. Who will rise to...
I started working on Epiroc machines in 2009. I've been able to career progress through the company to become the product manager for Australia. This is what inspires me.
Epiroc Australia is looking for passionate people to be a part of our global team and to make a real difference for our customers. If you're ready to start a new journey, visit us at epiroc.com.au. The field moves away on Conrod straight as we take a look at the starting grid. Luis Paulo Gallon and Rhys Gasol on the front row. John Peasnick starts third in his new Ferrari along with Gasol. Damien McPhee for Pure Racing Team in fourth. Alexander Bird and Dominic Ferraris on the third row, and Ross Rizzo and Danny Davison starting 7th and 8th. We won't have time to go through all of the cars in this bumper field. 32 cars in the Sprint Series Australia field for this new round at Mount Panorama, and Luis Paulo Gallon has them under control for the start. The safety car has made its way in, and off they go. Luis Paulo Gallon then making a very good start, and John Peasnick already jumping to the inside. Have a look at the start from Damien McPhee, vaulting his way ahead of Alexander Bird and Ross Rizzo as the field streams through Hell Corner for the first time. Coming down the mountain straight, you can see a lot of pressure being put on Gasol from McPhee, but Gallon has a good gap there out in front at the moment, David.
Yeah, a little bit of contact between Dominic Ferraris and almost 2 trick cars. Big move up the hill here, and the Altus car goes around the outside. Zach Hanlon is up 2 spots, and those drivers, Peasnick and Gasol in 2nd and 3rd, have swapped places from where they were on the grid. Peasnick has jumped ahead of his teammate in Gasol up the hill for the first time. It all looks mainly clean, especially in our top 10.
Yeah, well, it would have to be, because this is the part of the circuit where running side by side is a bad idea at the best of times. And it seems that they've all set into a good amount of single file running on this part of lap 1, but when they come up to Conrod and into the chase, that's when the first moves will start to be made. So Mr. Hanlon at the end of this train has got a very nice draft coming up for him if he can stay in touch with these guys. Peasnick, meanwhile, has broken away from the pack behind, is starting to really chase down Gallon as they come onto Conrod.
Yeah, great run over the top of the mountain in that Ferrari for John Peasnick, and he said he wanted to switch to that car because it just suits his driving style better. He's absolutely turning it on. He will be in that slipstream of the Ford of Luis Paulo Gallon. Problems, though, for John Nicolay down in the elbow.
Yeah, and that seems like he's managed to get going without much harm to himself or those around him, so the battle for third then, Rhys Gasol managing to eke out a little bit of a gap over McPhee, but now those trick BMWs are starting to come back at McPhee after his heroics at the start. Bird and Rizzo leading up the charge of quite a few cars behind them, including Ferraris, Sutton and Hanlon. And there's problems there for Lee Vandenberg, sitting in 29th, and oh my goodness, a car around coming up to the pit, Sam Devantier. I wonder how he managed to put himself in that little predicament, but we'll presently find out with a modem simulation replay, David, and it looks to me like, oh, there was some contact there. Very unfortunate coming over the rise out of the chase.
Yeah, from the chase and down towards the final corner, the 2 cars come together then, so we'll see it from a little bit earlier, potentially, what happened to him. Certainly a little bit of drama deeper in the field. The racing continues up the front, which is going to be very, very interesting to watch as well. One thing while we look for this replay to point out to you, 45-minute race for us here. We are expecting a pit stop, and with how difficult it is to pass over the top of the mountain, that's a place that people might end up saving a lot of fuel behind another car. You see that a couple of guys had already made contact with the wall before they got down to the chase. Look at John Nicolay on board with him. Down towards the elbow here and over the little crest there. Big wiggle, couldn't catch it, and into the tyres.
Yeah, that's a shame, as we're hearing Damien McPhee has gone off while we were looking at our replays, and he is missing from that first part of the field. A little bit of an off-track excursion at the skyline and just pushing too hard straight into the wall of the dipper. That's a big shame for McPhee. It looked like he could have been a real contender for this one. Oh, and Pat Gallo, yet another driver having issues down at the S's. These guys have found themselves with a bit more difficulty to contend with than I think they realized, because this is some late afternoon conditions with a track that's very cool.
Yeah, I think a lot of these guys...
Sam Sutton.
Yeah, a bit of a move there, Sutton, and Ferraris, I think, goes back another spot again. So I think what a lot of these guys were expecting was maybe slightly hotter temperatures, maybe less grip. A lot of these cars looking very snappy, especially as they come over the crest. Huge hit check, Ferrari's hard into the wall, collects someone else there as well in Reese Keane potentially, and trick car involved. Big crash on the exit of turn 1. Car parked on the racing line, they're facing the wrong way. Everyone goes around. Lots of cars come together there, quite a few hard into the wall, and that is one of the saddest looking Ferraris I've seen in a long time.
We have the safety car out to deal with this, and we'll see what happened here because Zach Hanlon actually put a move up the inside of Ferraris at the last moment into Hell Corner, and just looks like not enough room was given on the outside, which sent Ferraris around, and the ricochet effect into the cars behind them. There were quite a few innocent victims out of that one, Danny Davison included, on his roof. Remember, he started 8th. Here's the view from Davison. So there's Hanlon right up ahead, and Ferraris and Sutton going side by side. You'll see Hanlon jump out now, or thereabouts. There we go. Which is a fair enough move, and he managed to get alongside, but unfortunately, Ferraris was still trying to hold the outside. Very unfortunate, and oh my goodness, what a smash.
Yeah, it's always tough as well when you're on the inside there sometimes. I think Hanlon maybe thought he was getting squeezed on the inside a bit harder than he actually was. He's taken maybe a bit too much curb on the inside of turn 1 there, and that's actually caused him to then go out wider, and a bit of a hit check on Ferraris, and we saw what happened after that. It all went off like pinball. So Luis Polo Gallon has slowed up. He leads the field here, and they're all going to form up single file behind him once again. And you know what? This is not a surprise to anyone who is a regular viewer of this series, but Ross Rizzo is now in 4th, up 3 spots through 2 very chaotic laps. He's moved his way to nipping at the heels of the podium.
There aren't many more out there who can make the best of a bad situation more than Ross Rizzo can. And making himself way up into 4th from 7th, that's quite the stat that you'd want at a track like Mount Panorama, where, excuse me, it is hard to pass at the best of times. Well, these guys have a few moments now just to figure out their strategy, where they're going to go from here. It's always a bit of a reprieve safety car period at Bathurst.
Yeah, well, these guys are going to have a second to just slow down, think about what happened in the first couple of laps. Yeah, we'll process through it and get ready to go racing green again. I'm looking up and down my timing sheet to see who were the big winners and who were the big losers out of that mad 2-lap dash we had at the start of the race. Already called out Ross Rizzo, who's gained a couple spots, and one of them at the expense of his teammate, Alexander Bird, who's now back into 5th. But then there's some other big winners in there. We're also looking at Cam Dance, who's up 10 into 17th place. We saw him dodge some of those strewn and stricken cars. Not a big winner, though, is Scott Solosky, as he has gone on a very radical weight reduction program on that BMW M8. It does not look healthy, and I'm wondering what amount he'll be able to get fixed on that car. I think Bathurst tends to be a relatively low fuel consumption track, even though you've got some of these quite long straights, the whole across the top of the mountain. Difficult to be wide open throttle there, lots of places to lift and coast. We might see a situation similar to what we saw at Kota. There's maybe a few drivers right now who think they can fuel and get to the end from here.
Yeah, that's definitely a possibility. And the last time that Sprint Series went here, I believe when it was still GT3, definitely we saw a bit of potential for drivers to go the entire race without stopping, which is certainly a possibility here as well. But these GTE cars, they do have smaller fuel tanks than the GT3s that used to be running this series. So it's all up in the air for us at the moment, but usually we see one pit stop in these races. It's going to be a bit marginal in terms of fuel numbers.
But then there's the alternative strategy to what I was just suggesting, which is stay out, and if we have another safety car, which we may well just, the thin sliver of possibility that saving enough fuel, enough safety car running, some of these guys could get to the end. I would not bet on that were I in this situation, but you can never count anything out. first of all, in Sprint Series Australia, and second of all, at the mountain. So anything possible. The whole field is behind the safety car now. They've caught up with it. Luis Paulo Gallon, John Peasnick. Some other big winners inside the top 10. Martin Silvassi has come from 16th to be in 10th. So I think famine and feast again for Trick Sim Sports. Ross Rizzo, Alexander Bird, and Martin Silvassi doing well. But we can see huge dramas for Solosky and one of the other cars, if I remember. Definitely it's a hit and miss for the Trick guys, but that's why they've got so many cars out there. Not all their eggs are in one basket.
Yeah, exactly, and it's worked out pretty well for them, you could say, in the grand scheme of this series. Ross Rizzo was the champion for 3 seasons running, and he was able to get through there by sheer, I guess, lack of pushing, lack of getting himself into trouble. Ross Rizzo, you can always count on there to keep his car where it needs to be on the straight and narrow, and he always has a couple of strategy surprises up his sleeve. The amount of fuel that he's able to save in that thing is quite immense. But we can't count out the JP Racing cars, John Peasnick and Reese Gasol. With them jumping into the Ferrari after spending time in the Porsche this season, they have forfeited all of their championship points they gathered
Trick
up.
Cars in the lane.
But, oh yeah,
Trick Cars in the lane. All 5 of the Trick guys inside the top 10 jump into the pit lane. So your top 3 stay out of Gallon, Peasnick, and Gasol. Rizzo, Bird, Sutton, Trent Thomas, Michael Healy, all of them into the lane, and I think it's more guys coming into the lane than staying out. If these guys learn anything from Kota in this series, it's if you see the Trick guys in front of you coming into the pits, probably follow them in. That would be the safe bet. So a lot of guys going to take some fuel under this safety car and hope that that's enough to get them all the way to the end, or at the bare minimum might save them some time. If they have to make a green flag stop, they can make one quicker than everyone else. The only first car other than the top 3 to stay out, Zach Hanlon.
Yeah, that's interesting to see, because obviously he wouldn't have gotten much damage from his contact with Ferraris, would Hanlon, so no reason to come into the pits to get much of that repaired. And obviously he believes that he has the pace to stick with this front group, so you might as well give it a red hot go, do what they do.
Yeah, and when I think about the key differences between the situation we have here and the situation we had at Circuit of the Americas, both with the safety car at a similar point in the race, both split the strategy through the field. The biggest difference is that if you are now with some cars in front of you and you've lost that track position, it's a lot harder to get through them here at Bathurst than it was at Circuit of the Americas. So Ross Rizzo, the first car to jump into the pits, is now down in 11th place. We're going to go green flag racing at the end of this lap, and the cars in front of him are going to have to pit, but he's going to have a lot more of a struggle with those cars in front of him, getting through them, than he would have at Kota. Track position matters just a little bit more when it's so hard to pass across the top of the mountain.
Exactly right, and the amount of moves that you see made across the top of the mountain, they usually only take place in the final few laps of the race, which tells you something about the margin for error up here. You don't want to push it if you can help it. Ross Rizzo on that fuller tank versus the likes of Pat Gallo, John Nicolaf, Hayden Cunningham, Cameron Dance, and of course we got Ferraris, Harris, Johnson, and Thorpe in front of them before we get to our top group of Gallon, Peasnick, Gasol, and Hanlon. So a little bit of work there for Ross Rizzo to do, but knowing Ross Rizzo, it should certainly happen in due course. But now this top 4 face a repeat of a couple of laps ago. Gallon will be taking this field to the start. It's going to be a single file restart for us this time.
So what we're really looking at the next couple of laps of racing is how far can the likes of Gallon, Peasnick, and Gasol get ahead of Ross Rizzo while there's some cars between them. Those top 3 guys who didn't pit really need to start trying to build out 15 or 20 seconds or more of gap between themselves and Rizzo before they have to come into the pits. That's their aim, and that's their win condition in these last couple of laps. Rizzo needs to charge through the field and not let those top 3 who are 10 cars in front of him get too far ahead, because then when those top 3 pit, he's hoping that he will shake out in the lead of the race.
Yeah, and that all depends on how these leaders deal with each other as well, because we do know that both Peasnick and Gallon have had their fair share of bad luck when it comes to racing situations. So will we see a repeat of SSA at Mount Panorama a couple seasons back? Pace car pulls in, and Gallon will likely go just before or at the apex of Murray's. He's leaving it a bit late. There he goes. The green flag flies and Gallon is away. He's managed to get a good jump there from Peasnick coming down the start-finish straight, but they're staying with him. Crucial at this point. They've got a couple of long straights coming up, but the rest of the field starting to jostle around slightly. Ross Rizzo has already started making moves, just gone past Hayden Cunningham. Sutton is going to try and follow him through here, but already it seems like there's a fair gap for Ross Rizzo to deal with, and Cameron Dance goes through on Rob Harris just up ahead at Griffin's Bend. So Dance starting to make some moves as well. He's starting to monster the back of Benjamin Johnson.
Yeah, some of the guys who've pitted making their way past some of the guys who haven't, but Nikolaev has somehow jumped ahead of Ross Rizzo. That's what I'm seeing potentially on my timing screen of the cars that have pitted. This split in the field between drivers who have and haven't pitted means there's some quicker guys who've got a lot of work right now to try and get past some guys who maybe didn't qualify as high. So we're riding on board here with Cam Dance because he has made a couple spots off this restart over the crest there at Skyline, and then downhill you lock up a brake, you get a little bit out of shape in any of these corners through any of those turns there, and will be disaster, and you can know that disaster is imminent quite a bit ahead if you get offline there. No grip, he tries to get a great exit out of the elbow, he uses all of the track, so he's right in the slipstream of Benjamin Johnson. We'll see the Ferrari versus the Porsche down the hill here. These top speeds are going to be massive for these cars.
Yeah, just topping 250 as they come up over the rise. They don't reach quite as high speeds as our Australian touring cars, but they make up for it in downforce and grip. Cameron Dance through very easily there on Johnson, and Ross Rizzo just making a move in the background there on John Nikolaev. He is through, so that's another position. Bit awkward in the background for his teammate in Sutton, though. Oh, take care, guys. Take care. Move complete there, and oh my goodness, more problems there for Sislovsky. Dave, he's not had the best of starts, has Sislovsky, not just losing 5 positions just before the safety car in his front end, but he's got more issues now too. What happened to him on this modem simulation replay? Oh, just got a little bit too much into the grass, riding over that curb. Well, these GTs, they don't quite deal with those harsh bumps as effectively as the touring cars do.
Yeah, not as much ground clearance riding, just a little bit lower and a big flat bottom on them. So having had the bonnet replaced, finding himself deep down the order in the field, Scott Solowski has a little bit more issues. Look here, Zach Hamlin, Eric Thorpe, 2 guys who haven't pitted just yet, and Hamlin's really not getting as far away from Eric Thorpe here as we might have expected. The top 3 have bolted. There's almost 2 seconds between Gasol and Hamlin that you there see on that fantastic camera on the wall. And those 2 are getting away, and then it's Cameron Dance and some others behind. Another replay had an issue. I think this is going to be for Rob Harris and John Nikolaev. So we're definitely looking at Nikolaev here. It's been an issue for him. He's coming up towards the cutting. What happens for him here?
Turns in too early. No, he manages to ride that inside wall just fine. Looks like something happened behind him there, but I'm not quite sure. And whoa. Okay, so
Rob
that's
Harris
what
was
happened.
parked the wrong way, and he's probably in a bit of a blind spot there of Nikolaev. Nikolaev might have known there was a spun car, but you can't see which way you're going to go. You can't see that far up the track with all these crests, dips and dives. Harris nose hard into the wall, and then Nikolaev, sends him even higher than the top of the mountain.
It's a big shame there for both of those guys. We've got another replay coming up as something happening back in the field. Alex Court, Nikolaev's teammate at DPR, with an issue at Forest Elbow. Looks like just did not ride those bumps as well as it could have. Remember, these cars, they run the brake bias a bit further to the rear than the touring cars do. So under brakes, they do tend to be a bit more squirrely. That can come back to bite you coming down the mountain there.
Yep, indeed it can. Ross Rizzo is now 8 seconds off the lead of the race. If Gallon wants to win this, he needs to charge even further away at the front. He's built out 8 seconds. He must surely need that at closer to 25 or 30 seconds to win. The pit lane transit time alone, I think, is about 27 seconds. Then add however much fuel that Gallon is going to need to add. Right now, it's slightly working to Gallon's favour that Rizzo's tucked up behind Benjamin Johnson all the way across the top of the mountain, hasn't found a way past, and probably won't be able to until the chase. And we've seen, even if your opponent in front of you makes a mistake across the top of the mountain, half of the time that doesn't mean you can get past Dance and Hanlon together, and now a problem as well for Benjamin Johnson. So Rizzo, big gainer there, but Hanlon has lost the bonnet off his BMW, and we'll get another modem simulation replay, because that's some guys inside the top 5 coming together. Hanlon well out of shape towards Skyline, and as he connects someone else, I think Dance has just taken right across the escape road to avoid that one.
Yeah, looks like he has, and unfortunately Hanlon got another tap from behind by Ferraris, who was just looking for somewhere to go, and Benjamin Johnson as well having his issues as they came in there. There's the view from Dance's cockpit. Very well avoided, but he would have had a slowdown to contend with there. And, man, just very unfortunate for a lot of guys there. Johnson didn't quite see what was going on, so he jumped on the brakes a bit further to slow down. But once you go over that rise, the rear end goes, and not much Johnson could do from there.
And in any car coming over Skyline there is absolutely committed that the circuit keeps going downhill, keeps tightening, keeps slowing. If you come in with too much speed, it's too late to slow the car down further, and Johnson just could not react in time.
Certainly couldn't. Well, we take a look at more drivers further back in the field. This little pack all in a line up Mountain Straight. And Lee Vandenberg, who we saw have some issues further up the start, as well as Sam Devantier in front of him. These guys have found themselves in the top 15. There's another problem for a Ford further back there. Looks like Cameron Stubber. That's not what you want him to see. And Ross Rizzo now right onto the back of Cameron Dance. So the battle for 4th place now on. This will definitely be interesting, because Dance has already had to face some drama just before, and Rizzo has faced off against all of it. More problems for Scott Cislovsky, this time at the cutting.
Yeah, again, I think this is going to be a situation where Cislovsky's just been so far buried in the pack, so hard to pass. He's had to make some maybe unrealistic moves, and whatever's going on for him, he's had another issue facing the wrong way out on circuit. So Dance has now formed a little bit of a train in 4th place, but teammates in Gatul and Piesnik have just swapped positions back to their qualifying order. Dance, middle of the road, trying to defend Rizzo. Rizzo thinks about sneaking the nose down. Will he cross back to the inside at the chase? He cannot do so. He's got his teammate Alexander Bird following him, and Sam Sutton behind that. And then I think Rizzo will get to the inside here. Dance, he's going to have to contend with a second trick car, I would imagine. He's so late on the brakes around the outside.
He doesn't want to give it up, does he? Certainly
not. And Rizzo, I think, can't afford to get tangled in an issue here.
Oh, careful. There goes Rizzo on his way through. Sutton and Bird might have been able to get through as well, but unfortunately, seems like that's all she wrote for those guys. Piesnik has taken a trip into the pits. It looked like he had some damage on that car just before. That'll be something to do with why he let Gasul by further on. Cameron Dance still trying to stake his claim for a spot at the front of this train, but Sam Sutton has had a very rough time getting by him. So has Alex Bird. Right now, Dance, well, he's not really doing anything wrong. He's just trying to keep his position as best he can, but these guys will be getting, I think, a bit annoyed at the moment.
But that's what these guys knew was going to happen when they took that pit stop early and under the safety car, is that it would put them behind some guys like Dance who are allowed to race them and haven't taken their pit stop. They sacrificed that track position, and this is their sort of punishment for it. It's all about, can they make their way through the field quicker than the guys further ahead are leaping away. Take another look at a replay here. Look at Hayden Cunningham coming up towards the cutting. Such a difficult braking zone there as well, and he's just gone in a little bit too deep, nose into the wall. Another corner where you're braking and turning and the track just keeps on tightening. You can get a little bit offline and the whole thing gets away from you. You're behind the curve and then into the wall. That BMW went.
Yes, indeed. Meanwhile, two BMWs fighting hard. Ross Rizzo and Sam Sutton coming into the chase. Sutton running a little bit wide there, but he's keeping the pressure up very nicely on Rizzo at the moment. Bird and Thomas in the other two trick cars behind, they're still dealing with Cameron Dance at the moment, and it looks like they will be for a little time to come, because Rizzo, it seems, has been able to hold off Sutton's advances just fine so far.
One thing to point out as well as we have a look at Lee Vandenberg, who's been having a very, very adventurous race. All these guys only took fuel underneath that safety car. Same age of tyres for everyone, so there's no tyre advantage to the guys who had already pitted. So in fact, if anything, Dance has the lighter car with the same age tyres as these guys who are trying to fight their way through. And that's why I think some of them are having such troubles with it.
Yeah, exactly right, and it's not going to change any amount for some time here, because they are coming up to the top section, and it looks like this race is going to finish with the last vestiges of light coming over the circuit, which is always a fun time of day to be around Mount Panorama, but it's certainly going to make the track get a little bit more grippy as the race goes on. The temperature is dropping. It's at 27 degrees at the moment and still dropping. So there's going to be a bit more hard pushing in the last half of this race, I'd gather. But everyone's just in follow the leader mode coming across the top here. Now, when the track opens up out of Forest Elbow, is when moves will be made. Will Sutton be able to get the draft here and get by Ross Rizzo? He's certainly in the range, and Rizzo is not a particularly hard defender. So staying in the middle of the circuit, leaving Sutton room on the left. Sutton's already ahead at the turning point of the chase, and through he goes. Easy as you like there for Sam Sutton. So now he is at the front of this train, but that may carry some disadvantages.
Yeah, we'll see Rizzo right along with him again, and Cam Dance, now that he's had these two guys get past, very content to ride along in this pack for 3rd through to 7th position. We saw Bird through the chase got in very hot, but here's a look. Peasnick is just taken his pit stop, come out with a fresh repaired car and presumably fueled to get to the end. He can be very, very quick in GT cars. He's made up a couple positions. Big braking move down into the chase. We look again. Will Rizzo try and fight back? Sutton is on a very defensive line coming up the hill. I think Rizzo will roll out of the throttle just a tiny bit and follow him through this time, knowing that going around the outside here is so difficult because of the crown in the road. It makes the inside line slightly banked. The outside line is off camber. It is very, very difficult to carry momentum around the outside of that corner to make a pass.
That said, if you are brave enough to make a move, you're almost guaranteed for it to work, because the guy on the outside has nothing to respond to you with. We have seen some great defenses through Griffins in the past, but I think with the conditions being what they are at the moment, we won't see much chance of that in these machines. But this is a great battle for the final spot on the podium as it stands at the moment. Sam Sutton not managing to get away from Ross Rizzo as quick as he may have liked. So he will still have a lot of pressure on his shoulders in the number 10 as they come through to start the last 15 minutes of this race pretty soon. Checking in on our top two, meanwhile, Luis Paulo Gallon's up in front, just coming into the chase. He's been setting some good times. Reese Gasol as well, a bit slower, carrying a bit of damage is Gasol, but he's still managing to stay in that second place reasonably well. So for these guys, this is where the battling is at the moment.
Yeah, Sutton and Rizzo both 14 or so seconds off of Luis Polo Gallon. So I think they'll definitely jump him when Gallon comes into the pits, and you can tell that from where Peasnick is, who is running similarly, took a green flag stop and is now all the way back in 10th. So it's looking good for the drivers who took the pit service and took fuel underneath the safety car. Gallon and Gasul have a lot of work ahead of them.
They certainly do, and further back in the field, it looks like there's a couple of battles eventuating. Andrew Mogridge and Benjamin Brook have had a bit of a scuffle over the last couple of corners, and Alex Court is trying to take as much advantage as he possibly can here. He's just drawn up to the back of Brook coming onto Mountain Straight, and it's probably going to be a move for 12th place. So racing isn't just going on in the top 10 here. Brook braking a bit later on the outside, trying to maintain that middle line, but Alex Court on the inside, just demonstrating what we were talking about the lap before. He gets that really nice exit out of Griffin's Bend, which by virtue of being on the inside, that's all you have.
Yeah, exactly. Court was a little bit more early on the brakes. He didn't want to get in too hot with the driver around the outside, but you could see by about the middle of the corner, Court was able to open up the throttle and carry speed through the middle of the corner, and on the outside, Brook just couldn't get onto the throttle until deeper on the exit of the corner. Court easily through. Now Brook has Stubber, Thorpe and Healy behind.
He certainly does, and this final sort of lull in the race as it is at the moment, this is where the drivers will start. Oh no!
More problems for Thorpe. He's grazed the wall there. I think he's maybe avoided getting too much damage. He's lost a couple of spots through the elbow there. Who has gone on through the likes of just Michael Healy potentially. But yeah, Thorpe has had some troubles with that forward across the top of the mountain. It's looked a little bit twitchy, a bit out of shape in places.
Well, the battle not over for 4th place, because Cameron Dance is starting to come back at Ross Rizzo here. I recall your point earlier, David, that that Dance is not pitted. He will have a lighter car. This is where I think it'll really start to come into play, because the fuel load's coming off very nicely in that Porsche. Ross Rizzo still has a bit more weight to throw around and put on those tires. So Dance, it seems, still content to sit behind, but if there's a single mistake from Rizzo, he'll be right there.
Yeah, there must have been a little something from Rizzo, though, because he's not right up with Sutton anymore, and then we saw Dance was right in there. Yeah, the other trick guys in Bird and Thomas are now not within drafting range whatsoever of Cam Dance, so those guys have had something delay their progress a little bit as well.
Well, that's a mystery that we will find out the answer to another time, I suppose, because Sutton has a nice gap in front of them at the moment. He seems cool, calm, and collected. Meanwhile, the battle's further back in the field. I'm thinking about Andrew Mogridge and Benjamin Brook, who now have Cameron Stubber and Michael Healy for company coming across the top. And all of these cars carrying a few dings and dents, except for Healy's. And Michael, at the moment, he's got a few damaged cars to contend with, and he's not making much headway on them at the moment. So these guys are still pushing very hard.
Yep, certainly. Great run down the hill here from Trick Sim Sports car of Michael Healy. You're looking on board backwards from Cameron Stubber. And that BMW looms larger and larger. He pulls to the right-hand side, which is the inside of the first section of the chase, the outside of the next. We'll see if that works out. Healy has his nose in front, and yes, he's going to indeed get that job done. Potentially that little tweak of damage to the front right of Cameron Stubber might be hurting his straight line speed. Mogridge, though, slowed through the chase, backs it up right in front of Brook and Healy. Brook looking to the inside, not going to get through there. Healy will, though, get a much better run through the final corner, and he gets right into the back of Brook, who was slow on the exit.
Yeah, Brook having a couple of troubles with his Porsche there, it seems, but Healy on the racing line, able to take full advantage of that, or not quite full advantage. It seems Benjamin Brook has just the same, if not slightly worse run than Michael Healy has, but it will probably change pretty soon when they come up to Griffins. Brook off the brakes early and lets Healy go on through, but Healy's pushed a bit too hard in the second phase of the corner. Not getting a good run on Mogridge in front, but 3 positions then for Michael Healy over half a lap. Not bad.
And he's battling with other drivers who've already pitted now. It's his earlier race dramas have buried him in this pack here. He's now got Mogridge in front. He's going to try and catch up to across the top of the mountain and then do what he did last time around, which is get a great run out of the elbow, get a little bit of a slipstream and try and outbrake into the chase. And you can see just how quick that trick car is across the top of the mountain, how much confidence he's got to throw it into some of the blind corners. He's now right up underneath the rear wing of Andrew Mogridge.
And it could be a move down Conrod Straight. In fact, it's almost guaranteed. Healy's got a mostly clean car. Mogridge, unfortunately, with a bit of a substandard front end on that BMW, and Healy's going to get him on the exit of Forest Elbow here, so not much trouble there for the 048.
No, he made that look just a little bit too easy. One of the easiest passes we've seen all race long so far. So that does move Healy up into 12th, which is higher than where he qualified. Battling on behind them, though, Brook is trying to hold off Stubber, and has, in fact, done so on this time. Now, Eric Thorpe has caught back up to this pack, and he's looking at making that a 3-car battle. Into the pit entry goes Brook. That's interesting. Thorpe throws it down the inside. Cameron Stubber and gets that position as well. A lot going on in that run towards the final corner.
Yes, indeed. Reese Keane jumping into the pits as well for some repairs and a bit of fuel, I would imagine. He's down a fair bit, unfortunately, the DPR driver, so all the best for the final 9 minutes of this race. Luis Paulo Gallon has had very little to worry about in this one. Started from pole and has led every lap so far. Just seems like it's a practice session for him at the moment, just concentrating on hitting his marks lap after lap after lap. And I mean, Gallon, we've seen his form go up and down recently, but when he is out in front and he's able to do what he does best, he's certainly one of the hardest drivers you'll ever come up against.
True that. We look towards what's shaping up for who might be the winner of this race with 8 minutes to go, and Gallon in the lead, putting in some very, very quick laps, is now 16 seconds ahead of Sam Sutton, who's getting close to matching some of his lap times, and we know we still are owed a pit stop from Gallon, Gasol and Cam Dance. Sutton now leading all of the cars who have taken pit service. I think Sutton is in the driver's seat to maybe take this win in Sprint Series Australia. As the things stand right now, Cam Dance is doing very well, following along with the pace of Ross Rizzo. Still a pit stop for Dance. How far back would that drop him? He'll be racing out there right now, just hoping it's building a gap to some of the cars behind, so that when he does pit, and he'll pit as late as he possibly can, he'll come out ahead of as many of them as he can possibly get away with.
Yeah, but how many of them will it be is the question, because you did mention that pit transit time is about 20 seconds around here. Add to that, I'd say maybe 10 seconds for a splash of fuel. That'd put Cameron probably on the verge of the top 10, if not a bit outside it. So he does have a bit to lose from making the decision to stay out earlier, but still, the fact that he is managing to keep with Ross Rizzo like this shows what could have been if Dance had managed to follow them into the pits earlier.
Yeah, indeed. Dance was just, I think, a little bit too deep in the pack at that time of the safety car to not feel like he was going to be the one buried in traffic. So in going the alternate strategy, I think he is going to come out just behind John Peasnick, because there's a big 12-second gap between Peasnick and Alex Court in 11th. I think that is what Cam Dance is going to aim for when it's time for his pit stop. We look at Gallon. Is he going to have to come into the lane this time? And he is. So that's your leader, Luis Paulo Gallon. Tank running dry. 6 minutes to go. 4 laps. He has to come into the lane. Reese Gasol has to follow him in as well. We expect Sam Sutton to take the lead of the race All these guys who pitted under the safety car will have probably brimmed their tanks at that moment. Do they actually have enough fuel to get to the end without doing some serious saving? That's going to be a question for maybe just the last lap of the race. Dance also follows into the lane. So your top three now looks like Sam Sutton, who goes into the lead of the race. Ross Rizzo follows through into second. Gallon having to take quite a bit of service. Long stop for Gallon. I think he's been speeding on the pit lane entry. He's still standing there. Gasol is through and out. Dance service is done. Gallon 21.2 seconds held. That's 15 seconds longer than everyone else. That has absolutely hurt the chances of Luis Pablo Gallon, who re-enters the circuit in 9th place.
Now I'm taking a look at his pit entry just to see what happened. It looks like he did actually get into the pits. Oh yeah, he was 10 kilometers over when he crossed the cones. That's unfortunate for Gallon, so that's the reason why. But Sam Sutton, I think, will be cheering at the moment if he hasn't got any fuel dramas to worry about, which, once again, we don't quite know the answer to. So this race could potentially turn in the next 4 minutes and 45 seconds.
So of those drivers who pitted just then, Reece Gasol has ended up in 5th place. So not so bad for him, but he was running second, decided not to pit. Now he's got a couple of other guys in front of him. He has, I guess, gained one position, though, from that issue for Luis Pablo Gallon. That's some small comfort, that strategy that Reece Gasol has taken. Look now at Gallon, who's deeper in the field, but to the tune of 15 seconds than he otherwise would have been, than he otherwise wanted to be. So he's ended up behind Neil Pearson. We'll see if he can get a move done on the way down towards the chase here. I think he'll be very, very frustrated with that mistake that's caught him just a little bit of a penalty. He'll be wanting to move up that spot sooner rather than later. He gets his nose in front of Pearson, and it ends up looking very easy. Is it possible that the likes of Pearson have to save a little bit of fuel to get to the end? Was that safety car window just too early for some of these guys? That is the big question now with 3 laps to go.
Yes, indeed. We'll find out pretty soon, won't we, as Alex Bird and Reece Gasol fight for 4th place here. So both of these guys have taken their stops, and of course there are some questions over whether the trick cars will make it to the end, but that is a big straight line speed difference. Reece Gasol seems almost untroubled, and it's almost as if Alex Bird was yielding to him there. So maybe you're right, David. Maybe those guys that pitted earlier on are starting to look over their shoulders a bit more.
Okay, let's talk some fuel times. 5 seconds of fuel for Rizzo, 5.3 for Sutton, 5.8 for Trent Thomas. The guys who pitted under the green flag, like Gasol, took 6.7 seconds. So he's got a second more of fuel fill in there when he pitted under green, and he would have had more precision about knowing how much fuel was going to be required to get to the end. I think the guys who pitted under the safety car have taken enough to be able to get to the end, but not at full reach, not at full pace. They've had to save just a tiny little bit. Some of that's been reflected in the pace, I think, as well, because Gallon's fastest lap was a 1:58.2. Sutton is just done a 2-minute dead. Rizzo's last lap, a 2-minute 1. We'll see what Gasol can manage on his first flying lap. I think he's going to have more fuel, more pace. Such an interesting strategy climax that this race is going to come to in the last couple minutes.
Absolutely, and we'll keep an eye out to see how that turns out. John Peasnick is another driver we should look at. He's taken his stop out of sync with just about everyone, has John, and with a clean car, I'm sure he would have enough fuel to get home. He's managed to put himself up there very nicely. Gasol, meanwhile, has dropped Bird and is now chasing down Trent Thomas. The pace of this guy is really starting
Gasol
to
is
look like
2 seconds a lap faster than your leader Sam Sutton. They should have just taken the white flag for the final lap. Don't think Gasol is going to be able to catch Sutton or Rizzo, but Thomas it might not have the fuel to be able to defend against Gasol coming down Conrod Straight and towards the chase on the final lap of the race. I think Gasol is in a great position here with the kind of pace that he's got, with the kind of fuel conservation he doesn't have to do to be able to get himself onto the podium on the final lap here.
Yeah, well, he's got a bit more before he can make any sort of decisive move. We've got the likes of Sulman, McPhillamy, and the S's to come up. How is this battle going to turn out between himself and Trent Thomas? Well, Thomas knows how to defend. He's been under attack quite a few times in this series, and looks like Gasol is just biding his time for now. There's no sense trying to put one up the inside until the last possible moment at the end of the straight, coming up to the chase. Sutton is out onto Conrod now.
A huge moment for Gasol, locks up the rear, has a huge slide,
Wow.
just keeps it out of the wall, but that's compromises momentum out of the elbow. He's not close enough to Trent Thomas to be able to challenge. I think Gasol was pushing just a little bit too hard to be close there through the chase for the final time, though. Sam Sutton is the leader of your race. Here he comes towards the checkered flag.
An excellent drive from Sam Sutton. He played the strategy game well, made himself a good position past the trick guys, and he takes the win in Epiroc Sprint Series Australia at Mount Panorama. Great drive also for Ross Rizzo in second, and Trent Thomas holding off those advances from Reece Gasol to finish third. It's a fantastic result for those guys, and John Peasnick manages to hold on for 7th, Gallon for 8th, but you can't help but think things could have been a lot different if those guys had decided to jump into the pits under the safety car.
Well, I think a little bit of hindsight is always much clearer. Bit of a 50-50 move, I think, really, between jumping into the pits or not. I think Luis Paulo Gallon would have been almost assuredly on the third or second step of the podium if he hadn't had that little penalty. He maybe even still could have been a chance at stealing the win away because he had great pace. So I think Sam Sutton's pulled a strategy blinder to be the winner here, but he has definitely benefited from that penalty in the pit lane for Luis Paulo Gallon.
And if this is how a 45-minute race turns out, wait till you see a 161-lap race tomorrow. Race results then. Sam Sutton takes the win from Ross Rizzo. Trent Thomas completing the podium. Reece Gasol in 4th. Alexander Bird completes the top 5. Top 8 rounded out by Silvassi, Peasnick and Gallon. Just 2 of the drivers who suffered a bit less of a good fortune today.
Yeah, indeed. Down the order here, Neil Pearson has 9th, Cam Dance in 10th. Michael Healy finishes 11th. Alex Court gets 12th. Eric Thorpe, quick, but he had some issues, gets 13th place. Andrew Mogridge in 14th. Cam Stubber is 15th. Lee Vandenberg, who we almost only saw in replays, he still gets 16th place tonight.
Yeah, up from 28th as well. Good run. Benjamin Johnson gains 1 position on his start. Sam Devantier in 18th. Sean Reed and Benjamin Brook completing the top 20. Now we go into the drivers a lap or more down. Rob Harris with his issues earlier on, as well as Reece Keynes and Pat Gallo. Scott Zalowski, man, if there wasn't any more possibility to have a horror race, Scott Zalowski certainly took it.
And then 25th, it's Hayden Cunningham, Dominic Ferraris, pretty well the first of our main retirements here, involved in that huge lap 1 incident, brought out the safety car, along with Zach Hanlon, who is ended up scored in 27th, and then retirements from earlier in the race than that, John Nikolaev, Danny Davidson, Damien McPhee, Joshua Burden, and not taking the race start was Mia Otten. That was the 32 cars that we saw here in Sprint Series Australia. I think, dare I say it, at Mount Panorama, but this is a race that had big championship implications. That issue for Zach Hanlon, and then a good result for all of the trick guys getting, what is that, 4 cars inside the top 6?
Yeah, that's a fantastic run there for those guys, but we will step away. But before we do, another message here from our sponsor, Epiroc.
With Epiroc, I've had the opportunity to work internationally, study and develop my skill set. This is what inspires me.
Epiroc Australia is looking for passionate people to be part of our global team and to make a real difference for our customers. If you're ready to start a new journey, visit us at epiroc.com.au. First driver interview of the night then, Sam Sutton, our race winner. Sam, congratulations on getting to the top step in ESSA. My goodness, it was certainly one that was defined by that safety car period at the start.
Yeah, I learnt my lesson from Coda a few weeks ago of not putting out a safety car, and it was going regardless. The Trick Boys played a few games, and we followed him, managed to jump Alex in the stop, and it was a matter of just get in front of Ross, pull the gap, because I felt I was a lot stronger down the hill, and then I knew the other two had to pit. We just sort of played the numbers game, and it was close to going another lap, but it just slowed up in the last sector to make sure we got the white flag when we did.
Yeah, looks like you guys were pretty marginal in terms of fuel numbers, especially considering the pace of the drivers that pitted under green, like Gallon.
Yeah, he was going to be a bit of a wild card. If he kept going quicker, it would be the point where we were sort of turning the fuel mix down and going almost into cruising control just to maintain our fuel for the end. But he pit when he pit, and it gave me the buffer I had on the time to finish that lap when I did, and had enough fuel in hand to turn the engine all the way back up again for that lap.
Well, regardless, it was a fantastic win for you, regardless of any dramas that were faced across the course of that one. But next couple of rounds of the series certainly should be interesting as well. This support race at Mount Panorama is only the beginning of the final campaign for Sprint Series Australia.
Yeah, Zandvoort on Wednesday. It's going to be an interesting track to go to. Haven't driven there in a GTE before, and a GTE is not the car I usually drive, so back it up tomorrow in the 1000, and hopefully Jake can have a good run in the shootout in the next 20 minutes.
Well, before we let you go, Sutton, any shout-outs, any sponsors?
I'm all by myself. No friends, no sponsors, just out here have a bit of...
Well, congratulations to our race winner, Sam Sutton, and thank you for joining us in the commentary box. Second place on the road was Ross Rizzo for Trick Sim Sports. And Ross, my goodness, that first safety car period certainly turned things on its head, but you were one of the guys leading the charge into the pits.
Yeah, it was kind of premeditated that, a safety car early in the race would open up that strategy, but we had planned for it, or expected to go an extra lap, whereas Sam very cleverly blazed on and then slowed down right at the last moment, because I wasn't sure, quite frankly, whether Louis and Reese were going to pit, because if they stayed out, say, an extra lap, Sam would not have had that luxury. So we had to hedge our bets one way or the other. So we're a little bit unlucky, a little bittersweet, but we reaped a really good points haul from a bit of a numbers game.
Yeah, it certainly was a bit of a numbers game, but for your other campaigners, Michael Healy and Scott Kozlowski among them, the race didn't turn out quite as well, and Bathurst, I think, always throwing up surprises, but it does throw up chaos, and unfortunately it seems a few drivers were innocent victims caught in the melee.
Yeah, well, taking the early pit stop would put you buried back in the pack, where ultimately guys who weren't quite on the pace would be ahead of everyone and potentially causing bottlenecks. So there were likely going to be casualties, but it was really unfortunate that our guys were caught up on it. Not to mention they also had to quickly jump out from the SCOPS qualifying just a little while ago to jump into these cars and quickly acclimatise themselves to cars that actually have a lot more grip, decent tyres, some aero, and as well as a cool track. So I think they did a pretty good job, but it was really unlucky they weren't able to get some points today.
Well, now it's time for the Trick guys to focus on the 1000, the shootout tonight and qualifying tomorrow. So before we let you go, Ross Rizzo, any shout-outs or sponsors for you?
First of all, big shout out to Sam and congratulations on our fantastic victory. Big thank you to Epiroc, our series sponsor, and to Trick Custom Fabrications, Knight Rider Designs, Joe Real Timing, and in general the boys at Trick, and to you guys at the iRacing Esports Network and SimSpeed TV.
Thank you very much, Ross Rizzo from Trick Sim Sports. His teammate Trent Thomas joins us, completing the podium from this last support race. And Trent, it looked like quite the drama throughout that race. How did it unfold from your perspective, coming into third at the end?
Yeah, it was an interesting race through the middle there. I was starting to worry whether or not pitting on that safety car was the right call. And then I started saving quite a lot of fuel Worked out well in the end, and just tried to keep myself clean. There was a few incidents that I had really close near misses too. So yeah, it was, and then that last lap with Reese coming up behind me, I just sort of put foot to the floor and slowed a little bit into the elbow to try and make sure I got the run down Conrod, which sort of tempted him into a bit of a look, and that sort of gave me the space I needed to maintain third place.
And with that third place, it sets you up very well for the final stages of this championship, and a good points haul for Trick, as your teammate Ross Rizzo said.
Yeah, definitely another good points haul for the Trick team. So yeah, looking good for the team's championship there. I'm just excited to have a clean race for once, and ended up getting a pretty good result.
And at Bathurst of all places, congratulations, Trent, and thank you for joining us in the commentary box. And that brings to an end proceedings for support racing here at the V8SCOPS Bathurst 1000. Now we go into the shootout.
iRacing, you wanted the best, you got them 4 abreast. Often imitated, never duplicated. The greatest show under the world of outlaw.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to fantastic action that is coming up for you. We've just seen some brilliant work with SSA and GTE Racing, but now it's shootout time. It's the moment you've been waiting for. The big decider for the top 15 is going to come fully into fruition. Every driver knows they have one lap. They have one chance. They have one opportunity. They have every other lyric that comes in for that single Eminem song, but they all know one thing exactly. They know that they have got to put out their very, very best over 6.21 kilometers and 23 turns of Mount Panorama Bathurst. So keep an eye out for this as we go forward. Jake Sperry back here again. Reese Gardner stays alongside. Reese, this is what qualifying is all about.
It certainly is, and it doesn't come down to as raw of a format as you're getting here. And I dare I say it, the shootout is one of my favorite parts of any Bathurst weekend, because all you have is the greatest track in the Southern Hemisphere and one lap to try and get everything right. We've seen plenty of dramas over the years in our Sim 1000. We've seen heartbreak. We've seen surprises. I'm sure we'll get more of the same. The first car is coming out now, and we will be able to see just who gets out on top.
Well, it's going to be very important moving away from qualifying into this shootout. And we saw how the times were so close to try and get in. And the big thing for qualifying was 4,000s. 4,000s locked ERT out of a third position, kept Trans-Tasman with 3 cars in. A lot of conversation came in over that period, over that endurance race, or that sprint race that we just saw, about the issue that cropped up for the Logitech G Altus Esports 215. There was a number change. There was talks of maybe they shouldn't be in this session. It's been cleared up by race stewards. They are allowed to take their spot. More importantly, it's the final spot as well. So ERT, I believe, are not too happy with Altus Esports being allowed in, but that's the ruling, and as such, they will go forward and they will race in this final.
They certainly will. It's going to be quite interesting to see, because we're no strangers to drama at Bathurst, both on track and behind the scenes. But it's good to see that that's been worked out, and we'll be able to get all of the cars out there for now. We're still waiting for the first car to go out there and start strutting their stuff on the outlap, but until then, we get a very good view of the dip at the top of the hill. A fantastic section of track, Jake. And I tell you what, having been there in real life 3 times now, TV does not do it justice. It absolutely doesn't.
No, it absolutely He doesn't. You're absolutely right. And of course, I hope very soon to make my first pilgrimage all the way from the United Kingdom over to Mount Panorama. Just a beautiful circuit. And in terms of public roads, there really isn't any circuit quite like it, because it does have, Reese, that racetrack feel to it, and not many tracks get that. Monaco is very much entrenched in a street circuit, but a street circuit that feels like a racetrack, you don't get much better than here.
You certainly don't. Actually, quite an interesting story behind that. Not too sure on the historical accuracy of it, but apparently Mayor Griffin of Bathurst, who, yes, Griffin's Bend is named after him, he came up with the idea for Bathurst to be the home of an incredible racing venue after some open road racing at the start of the 20th century brought a lot of publicity to the area. Emily Jones making her way out of the pits to start her outlap in the number 47. But the story essentially goes, Griffin and the council wanted to build a racetrack, but they couldn't get any government funding because it was the Great Depression at the time, and the government didn't want to expend funds on something as frivolous as a racetrack. So they came up with a bit of an idea. They said, hey, why don't we build a scenic drive going over the Bald Hills? It'll be really good, bring a boost to the local economy and create jobs as well. The New South Wales government okayed that, and as the Mount Panorama Scenic Drive was being built, someone said, hey, you know what, this would make a really good racetrack.
Really good racetrack it will be. So, up the mountain comes Emily Jones on her outlap. She's got a big result for her already. She has a spot booked in the E-Series. She is one of those top drivers who will be looking to make a big representation, and as a female sim racer as well, it's always a little bit more difficult to get that opportunity. She has done wonders to get herself into this position. We'll see what she's going to be capable of doing. She will be the benchmark over the course of this lap. So Reese, this is the big question that comes in. What sort of time are we expecting? That track has come down 15 degrees from where it was in pre-qualification. Every setup now has to be completely changed as you gear up for a new lap.
Yeah, not only that, but we do have some clouds in the sky. It was clear skies in the open qualifying session before, but now it is listed as mostly cloudy. 25-degree track temperature, 25 air temperature, 44 track. I'll get it out in the right order eventually, but for Emily Jones, all of that should be put to the back of her mind presently because she's gearing up to start her lap.
She certainly is, as she makes her way towards the final corner, Murray's, and looking for everything possible here to open out this corner and to start the lap. Heads through the left-hander and looks for something absolutely magnificent. Let's get the shootout underway then to Hell's Corner. We start this off. Jones needs to be perfect on this lap. Of course, you've got no benchmark. You can only go as quick as you can. You don't have to run to sector times, which many people are looking. You'll have your sector times up on screen as she makes her way up the mountain stretch and looking for turn number 2 here at Griffin's Bend, and looking to try and make sure that this one works. On the brakes then, up into turn 2. Sorry, I'm going to say that one wrong a little bit, but here we go, looking to try and get some good power here, heading through this opening section up the mountain. The cutting comes up first and foremost. Beautiful camera angle, seeing all of the corner, just how quick that you fly through this section. Looking up towards this mount. Coming up next, what's the first sector time? 47.4.
Oh, that's a good split to start off with for Jones, but there's even more challenge coming up in this second sector. She's keeping the lines nice and clean over the top through McPhillamy. Nicely controlled, just glancing off the curb on the exit. Down through the S's now. Got to keep the car as straight as possible. Make sure that it doesn't over-rotate, because you lose one iota of grip and you will be in the wall. Jones has gotten through just fine. Now they come up to the second split line on the exit of Forest Elbow. It's a nice siding entry for Jones, and out of the corner, it's a 30.717 for the second sector. This is going to be a very good time for sure.
A very good banker then, as she needs to put that time in, heading down the mountain straight and using all of that power available underneath that Holden. 283, 84, 85 in the speed trap, hitting the brakes. So not as quick as some, hitting 287 when it was pre-qualification. Rounding through that chase section, nice and narrow there on that final curb. And the final corner awaits now for Emily Jones, who will set the time for the Trans-Tasman Racing 47 machine. Cross the line she will go and sets a 2:06.4 to start off proceedings. A very handy lap, definitely quicker by a second compared to any lap we saw earlier on. So a good benchmark, 2:06.4. 2:05s, I think, are what people are looking for pole position, but 2:06.4, a very solid start. Wayne Burke will be next for One Performance Racing.
That was a good banker there from Jones. It gives us, for the first time, a true sense of what sort of times we can expect. I'd agree with you, Sperry. 2:05s, I think, will be what the pole time is. But Wayne Burke, he has a bit of pressure on his shoulders here as the second car out, because not only does he have the track to himself too, but he has got a time to aim for now.
Certainly does. Wayne Burke has struggled this season. It's not been the performances that One Performance have been looking for. One should expect that One Performance times should be up there challenging. Has a race victory to his name. Got that last year at Interlagos. He's got to get up to the big time once again. Maybe Mount Panorama might just be the place where the 89 machine finds the improvements that he so desperately wants. Wayne Burke rounds the final corner now and will look to start then his flying lap, his opportunity, as he looks to go out there and attack this opening half of the lap and make sure that that time is good. Looking for everything possible to make sure that this opening lap's good through Hell's Corner. Nice and neat, nice and narrow. Gets good run off of the exit now and up the hill. Start charging up and down and up again. It's almost like you're riding a roller coaster up through this section as every little lap becomes crucial. 47.4, the best time that we've seen from Jones so far. We'll see if there is going to be an improvement from Wayne Burke when he heads through this section, through turn 2 and off of the exit. Little wiggle on the exit there's got to be careful about that. Can't afford to hyper heat up the tyres too much as he heads into the cutting here at 3 and 4. Small lockup as he heads through this section. It's looking a little bit scruffy then to start this lap. Heading up through Griffin's Mount, coming up right next. 47.3 though, he's up by 1/10.5 in the first sector.
That is a good sector split there for Wayne Burke. He needs to carry that momentum now across the top of the mountain and down through the S. Has absolutely clobbered that curb on the inside, and he's using an awful lot of the curbing around the track at the moment. Seems very confident in the behavior of that car. The SSR the One Performance, number 89, is looking very stable under brakes down through the S's. Out to Forest Elbow then. He's keeping it nice and tight to the inside. Oh, almost a rub of the wall. There might have been a bit of instability there, but the sector split is there. He is just under.
He is just under, and he's got 0.2 of a second to play with here in this final section, heading through Conrod and towards the chase. So Wayne Burke is flying at the moment and is looking like his time is going to be absolutely fantastic as he gets himself down onto the chase, and he just tries to get that power down, maybe struggling a little bit with rotation through that section of track, but able to get it going through the second part. How is the lap going to look through the final section? 2:06.4 the benchmark. He had 0.2 in the pocket. Wayne Burke crosses the line and does a 2:06.468. The lap fell away in the final section. The chase did it. 3,000 short. Emily Jones holds on. Wayne Burke let that slip.
Oh, he certainly did, and it looked like it all came down to it at the chase. He just broke a little too late, went too hard into the left-hander, and unfortunately, you carry that lack of momentum all the way down to the final corner. So a big shame for One Performance Racing there, but they've still got a fair way to go in this session. James Mackay is up next in the 489.
This is the first of 2 pursuit cars that will be going for the run, and James Mackay has been sensational over the course of the last 3 months. He has been really knocking on the door and saying, let me in. I'm one of the best drivers you can find in Australia. And at the moment, I think James Mackay is saying that he wants to be stepping up. He wants to take notice. And if anything's going to happen, then he's got to make sure that drivers take notice right about now. Into the chase then. He comes along and he looks to gear up for his one and only lap that he's got that is capable. And as we saw, He left his lap very early on in terms of his first practice times. He escaped the session with about 20 minutes to go when many of us thought that he may not be safe on a 2:08 flat. He made it through. The times have come down by a good 1.6, 1.7 seconds. We'll see how it goes then on this opening lap through Hell's Corner. Nice and good on the curb on the inside and takes a lot of curb on that outside line as well. So Mackay has to be careful in this section as he looks to try and push and try and get that lap time to work going here up through this mountain straight and in towards turn 2, out on track. How good are you going to be on the brakes? He looks and tries to find his line and looking through that section, a little squirrely on the inside and on the outside. Absolutely fine, absolutely fantastic as he heads his way up through towards turns 3 and 4 here at Griffin's Bend. At the cutting even, as I get myself a little bit mixed muddled up as he goes up through. This is nice and neat as he heads through to the mountain section, and it's a 47.1. He's storming on this opening section.
And one thing we've got to take into account is the track temperature. It's actually gone down by 3 degrees since the start of the session. So the track is in a very good state right now for McKee to set this time. That split just says it all. The track was cast under a pall of shadow from a cloud, and it seems like it's a bit shady here in the S's as well. So a lot of grip available to McKee, and this is where all of that grip is going to count for the most. This section down here and the exit out of Forest Elbow. It's a nice clean throttle application for McKee, and he is up again.
He is up again. He's got himself half a second to play with. Surely he can't bottle it from here. He's been flying over the course of this lap. The track has certainly helped him out in terms of condition. This is the variable that you see when it comes to the shootout. Sometimes Lady Luck plays in your favor, and Mackay is going to make sure that it plays in his, heading himself through in that final section. He gets a whole heap of curb heading through the left-hand section and a huge slide on the exit. He saves it as he pushes to the final corner. He's not leaving anything to chance here as he rounds that final corner. The track descended into shadow. Cross the line goes James Mackay.
Great
It's a
lap.
2:05.9, half a second clear.
Great lap there from James McKee. That's fantastic. And just goes to show the weather, as you said, Sperry, playing its part very nicely there. So Pursuit Sim Racing, they've got one car that's set some really good pace. They do have another in there with Andrew Gilliam at the wheel. How is he going to do? We'll have to wait a bit because Jake Burton is now out there in the number 33.
Yes, Jake Burton, ever the optimistic, ever looking to try and get a great lap time in, has always been looking there or thereabouts. It's fantastic in the way that he goes about his business, and he knows better than anybody else what it takes to win an event like this. He's won one before in terms of a V8SCOPS race. He won it at Watkins Glen. He wants to get back to that stage without a team. Coming into this one, we'll join up with Sam Sutton in the Is This 2015 powered by Virtual Racing School car. This is going to be crucial for Jake Burton and his team to make sure that the lap time is going to get into prime position. On the brakes then to start his lap, and he will be the 4th driver to go, and he will know what is capable, what is needed, but he needs a little bit of help from this track. He was struggling in the hot conditions. He did not like them at all. Maybe a track which is 15 degrees cooler is going to give him a bit of help. Very neat and narrow through the opening section. Doesn't take as much curb though as the pursuit car of Mackay just in front. But up the hill will be the challenge here for Burton. What's he going to be capable of doing? How will he set up this opening lap to fall into his favour as he now looks to make the push? There you see on the bottom of your screen, it's a 47.1 that needs to be beaten in terms of times, and a double take as he goes through turn 2 and tries to get the power down. This is looking maybe like he's trying to fight that vehicle a little bit. A lot of wide line being taken up into the cutting corner, and what's the time going to look like as he heads through this next section? 47.1 is the time to beat. 47 flat, he's quicker.
He certainly is, and you know what? Sutton will be very happy with that. Remember, Sam Sutton won the Bathurst 1000 with Jake Maloney back in 2015, so if Burton can hook this lap up, he and Sutton will have a very good chance at giving Sutton a bit more glory here at the mountain. Nice clean lines down through the S's. Look at the way that car rides the bumps. Burton has that that car under complete control. It's wanting to murder him at every single turn, but he is just wrenching that car for all it's got. Next sector split, 30.383. He's up even further.
He is. He's got 0.3 of a second now, and Jake Burton knows it. Just got to stay clean through this final section. He's up, and he's up by a fair amount as he looks to push and he looks to try and find that final time, which works so very well for him as he looks to try and get going. Has he got everything that he wants out of this? He gets on the brakes into this next section. What do you have left? Misses the apex ever so slightly, takes no curb at all. No curb at all through any section except the last, and he doesn't take much at all as he makes that push towards the final corner. What do you have, Jake Burton, as you round yourself through Murray's corner? 2:05.9 to beat. It's a 2:05.4. What a lap time by Jake Burton. He finds half a second.
Half a second, and this is where you start to see the real potential of the session. If we're only a few cars into this, we still have 11 more cars in this session to set a time, and it's when we start getting up towards the top, the likes of the Evolution Racing Team #1, the likes of the Trans-Tasman 77, etc. That's when you're going to start to see the timesheets really set alight. But what can Harley Haber do? What spanner can he throw in the works in that number 21 Mach 1 machine?
What can he find? He knows what he wants, and he'll try and get it. The Vegemite of sim racing. You either love him to pieces or you hate him with your guts. Harley Haber knows what he's capable of. One of the young upstarts, probably one of the future drivers to go in. He's challenged the likes of the very best who'll be going later on in these sessions. Harley Haber has been there. Maybe not the best perennial qualifier in the world, but my goodness, does he race, and race hard when he gets out on track. He knows how to fight as he'll look to get one magical hot lap working for Mark 1 and Mark Samuel's team. On the brakes he goes into the opening corner. Slightly missed the apex there on the inside. Gets a lot of curve on that outside line. Maybe missed the apex there by about half a foot or so as he goes through. That's going to cost him 0.5 of a second as he pushes up this hill. So Harley Haber already behind at the moment as he tries to push in towards turn 2. Out on track. Haber's got to find what he's looking for here as he heads through this section, and again leaves a little bit of room on that inside line and uses all the curb on that outside, trying to get it to work. Up now through towards the cutting here, turns 3 and 4, nice and narrow through that section. We saw Burton go really wide through that section as he looks to try and find a good time on this opening split. 47.3 though, he's 0.2 down.
Yeah, well, that's unfortunate for Haber. It looks like he might have lost most of it in Griffins because he did push a bit hard through there. He's pushing very hard across the top too, tracking out a bit earlier than he'd probably like. You don't actually lose too much time by missing the apex at Hell Corner because it's got a bit of a weird line through it. It all depends on your throttle application out of there. If you're half a car width wide at the apex, usually it's fine, but Haber has some bigger fish to fry than that at the moment. Second sector split, a 30.367, so that's faster than Burton. So Harley Haber, he's definitely looking to throw a spanner in the works here, but he's still 0.3 down on Burton's overall lap time.
Well, he was able to match the middle sector, but that opening sector may have just cost him. He's got to find an absolute beauty here in this final section. He's currently on course for second place overall if he continues on this vein. Makes his way through a lot of curb there on that inside of the first part of the chase. Trying to get the power down through the second part, over 200k, heading to the final corner. On the brakes he goes, looking for that lap time. He's nice and neat through this final section, all over the curb on the exit, crosses the line, 2:05.999. It's only good enough for third, so he dropped slightly in that final sector where Burton was so good, and Mark 1 are starting no better than third.
That's a shame there, but still, it was a good lap there from Haber. Few mistakes, but just goes to show how hard he is pushing for those honours in the shootout. Now we turn our attention to Brett Loxton in the number 209. He's driving with Thomas Hins in this race, and I'm interested definitely to see how these guys go, because Loxton, we know of his form, especially at places like Montreal. He's one of those drivers that, depending on the track, is right up there with the best of them. Now he's got another spot in the top 10 shootout with a very good team behind him in Zuva.
Well, he was so good at Montreal, but no result has truly come close to matching how good he was there. Is Mount Panorama going to be the turning point in Brett Loxton's season as he now hits the brakes and makes his way through the chase, looking to open up his flying lap? The 209 with Thomas Hinds, a driver who has jumped around from place to place, never really truly calling it home, a mercenary for hire for driving around certain tracks. Thomas Hinds has had his fair share of bad luck over the years. He's looking for a little bit of help when it comes to this qualifying session, but he has to leave it in the hands of Brett Loxton, who heads through turn 1 and again leaves a lot to be desired through turn 1. Had to lift out there at turn 1, had to be so careful there on that curb on the outside. This is not the start to the lap which Brett Loxton and Zuva were really hoping for if they wanted to make sure that this one's going to work in favour. 47 flat is the margin you look for, and I'm not sure Brett Loxton's there. That vehicle set up so loose through turn 2, another wiggle through the end of turn 2 as well. So now you see Brett Loxton fighting his Zuva car. He's not happy with it. He's really uncomfortable as he heads himself through the cutting. Not really too many issues here, but the lap time will start falling away with every little wiggle, as if 47.5 is the slowest of the lot so far.
Yeah, and again, it was the run through Griffins that I think really killed it in the first sector, because you can see Loxton's got that car set up with a very aggressive front end. It's dancing on the rears. That car likes to turn, maybe a little bit too much, over the curb. At McPhillamy, he's pushing very hard through the S's. He'll have set up the car for this section where turn-in is everything. Unfortunately, it has not helped him through the first sector. We'll come up to the second timing line here, 30.7. This is not going to be a front-running lap from Brett Loxton. Let's see what he does in the final sector.
He's 9/10 of a second back, and he's only got 1 second to play with if he doesn't want to start from the very back, which is currently being housed by 1 performance rating. It's a disappointing lap at the moment from Brett Loxton and Zuva. They know they're capable of so much more, but they simply cannot find anything. Through the chase they go as they get on the brakes, and look at this one-lap shootout. Another big slide heading through that section. That car is so loose. They've got that setup completely wrong for this session, for this heat, for this temperature. On the brakes they go into the left-hand final corner. Cross the line he will go, and Brett Loxton does a 2:06.7, a disappointing 1.3 seconds behind where he needed to be in terms of his time, as Pursuit will send their second car out.
It looked like that lap was on the verge of going wrong about 4 or 5 times for Loxton. A real shame. They'll have to put some thought into the way that the rear end of that car works. I mean, they might not have been preparing as much for the shootout as we thought. You know, the fuel load at the rear of the car can certainly make it very light. And if you're not quite expecting that level of lariness, then you got problems. Let's hope Gilliam doesn't face much of the same. He's set the timesheets alive in practice sessions this season so far. Now we get to see a full lap from him in all its glory.
Andrew Gilliam has been knocking on the door of the top 5 for so long this year. He's just not been able to break through, but he has been, quote unquote, the best of the rest this season. He has been up there and scrapping and clawing and saying, let me in, I know what I'm capable of. Rounds the final corner, looks to get his lap underway, then we'll see what Gilliam is going to be capable of as the final bastion for Pursuit. They currently have a car scored in second position. No guarantees that'll be good, but that's a huge missed apex at the opening corner. Really struggling there through that section, and that's going to really compromise the entirety of the lap. He'll be slow all the way up the hill towards Griffin's Bend here at turn number 2, and even further afield from that as he looks to get through towards the mount, and further forward and further afield into turn 2 he goes along. Nice and neat this time though, through on that section. Bit of curb on the exit, unsettles the vehicle slightly, but now up to turn 3. What has Gilliam got as he looks to try and go through the cutting? Again, nice and narrow, small little lockup there as he goes through, but that's no cause for concern at the moment. 47 flat was the looking time, 47.2. Okay, not brilliant, but so wide.
Yeah, that's not going to help his second sector time. It seems like once the corners start coming thick and fast, Gilliam just wasn't in the right place at the start of that section, so he'll be carrying that time loss all the way down the hill here. Let's see how he goes through the S's then. Bounces over those curbs, almost getting into the grass, and he's not quite as precise as we saw the likes of Jake Burton being, so Gilliam definitely pushing here. Don't know if it's worked out. A 30.5 then in the second sector. So not that far behind, but he's still got a little bit of work to do.
Well, he's lost 0.4 of a second then over the course of the lap. Maybe even half a second, knocking around second and third, and maybe even could drop as far as fourth. He should have the gap to the 47 time set by Emily Jones, Trans-Tasman that is, but for third position, I think we're looking at this scrap. Gilliam needs a solid final sector though, because we know that the pursuit car was pretty good. Over the curb he goes, and that first pursuit car, the number 201, now makes the push under the Armorall Bridge and towards Murray's Corner, the last corner out on track. What can he find through this left-hand 90 as he looks to put the power down early as possible as he crosses the line? It's a 206.2, and he really struggled in that last sector there, and he's lucky he didn't drop any further.
Yeah, well, still, that's a good lap there from Andrew Gilliam. He's slotted himself 3 places above the final spot in this shootout session so far. So I guess that'll be job good enough there for the pursuit guys. They got 2 cars there up in the top 15. See how they go. Omen Zero Esports then. Let's see what they have up their sleeves, because they're qualifying performances at Road Atlanta and Imola were certainly unexpected, and they've got an awful lot of potential in those Holden Commodores. Anderson, we've seen him drive in the Aussie racing cars at Bathurst. We've seen him race well in Porsches and in GTs around here. Now, a lap alone in a Australian touring car.
The end of this lap marks the halfway stage in terms of this shootout, and this has been a very interesting case to see who can do it over 1 lap and who can't. So here's Josh Anderson making the push and starting his lap, the first of 2 Omen cars that we will be seeing here for Zero Esports. This the red machine, heading himself into turn 1, 2 takes, 2 bites of the cherry to get the vehicle turned in there as he was fighting the rear of that vehicle. He gets on the power, and up the hill he comes along, looking towards Griffin's Bend here at turn number 2. Up the hill and down it, and now he will head back up it once again as he looks to hit the brakes up the hill. You can brake a little later because of the fact that you can use gravity to aid your braking. Slightly missing the apex there on that inside. Has to use all the curbing on the outside to keep the momentum and keep the power. Moves himself then up through to the cutting. Turn number 3.
Oh no, he's wide.
Flat again, and he is very wide through that section. He's just been able to gather it up without hitting that 1X incident, but he goes through. How much does it cost him? 47.7. That's how much. 7/10 lap abandon.
Oh yeah, there's no way he's going to be getting that time back. All he can do is finish the lap and just hope that it's not last in the session for Josh Anderson. Nice and clean across the top, not going anywhere near the curbs, and I think he's certainly realized that by now. No point in trying to push hard for that maximum lap time. Just keep the sectors coming. Don't hit the walls. Get it home. Get a time on the board.
Oh.
And the second sector. Oh, well, that was actually a really good second sector. Shame about the first.
Yeah, it was completely identical in the second sector, so that's how much Anderson could have had. He could have been challenging for it if he didn't mess up the cutting. So, he's on that recovery, looking at maybe 4th place, and maybe looking to try and find a little bit more. It's going to be very tough here for this Omen Zero Esports red team to get much more out of it, but on the brakes goes Anderson, and he gets so much curb through that section that may just compromise the run as he was up on 2 wheels. Gets a lot of curb on the exit as well as he pushes to the final corner. He's looking at maybe a 4th place right now. He's got to find something here out of this final corner. A big slide of power, torque as he gets off the exit. 206.302, P5 only.
That's a shame. If it weren't for that first sector, he would have been much more of a challenger to Jake Burton's time. Big shame for Josh Anderson, but that's the luck of the draw sometimes. Around this track, it's very easy to make a mistake, and once you do, then your lap's as good as gone. How will this guy do then? Hobo88, earning a spot in the E-Series, and obviously a big audience on Twitch cheering him on for this one. Of course, the last he'll be hoping for is a starting position of 6th in this one, but we'll see how he goes, eh?
We'll see how Hobbo 88 goes. He's got his E-Series place all booked with the Raw. He knows that he is a very, very solid driver. He knows that all his fans know he's a very solid driver, and he'll be trying to push and say to everyone, well, this is what I'm capable. I am not just a Twitch streamer. I'm not a Matt Malone. I'm not a quirkatized Tyson Meyer. I am Brenton Hobson, and I am absolutely world class when it comes to these sorts of vehicles. Let's see what Hobson's going to be capable of doing in the number 88 machine. Synergy Sim Racing, JK Signs Racing, all know that all hopes for Synergy rely on him. Let's start the lap then and see what Hobbo is going to be capable of doing. He needs to find a 205.4 if he wants to get it going, but the track not helping. Nice and neat through turn 1. That's a brilliant hook up there off the exit as well, and Hobson has made sure that he gets the basics right. You get turn 1 right, you feel happy for the rest of your lap. Up the hill he'll go then, the mountain straight, and towards Griffin's Bend of turn number 2. Hobson knows that he's got to be absolutely flawless through this section. Nice and tight there on the curb, and off the exit then he uses all of the curb and maybe slightly more as well, so he's using all of the track as he comes up to the cutting. This is where Anderson made the mistake earlier on, but through this section he's absolutely fine. No worries at all then from him at the moment. First sector time comes in 47 flat to beat. It's still though a 47.3. He's 3/10 off because of maybe the heat.
Yeah, that the track is starting to change a little bit now with more sun hitting it, but Hobson is keeping it nice and clean across the top, just riding those curbs just so. He's always a precise guy, Hobson. No better place to see him strutting his stuff than around here, nearly kissing the wall there in the dipper. Fantastic corner to go through in any car, and that is a pretty good sector time from him at the second split.
Only fractions slower there, 30.417, loses 300ths then to Burton, who leads, still on course for second position if things stay like this, but it's still so tight, second, third, and it will be fourth as well if Synergy can find what they are looking for here as they head down towards the chase. 285, 286 just on the brakes, and he had to brake whilst turning as well to that outside line. That's not going to help at all as he gets a little bit of curb heading through that section on a slide. Coming out to the exit, it's starting to fall apart this lap ever so slightly for Brenton Hobson. He's starting to push a bit too hard, trying to find the time once again. Round the final corner he comes, and across the line, it's a 206.3. That lap fell off a cliff towards the end, and it's 6th place only.
That is a real shame. It seems like the final sector is what's really catching these races out. Of course, it's so tempting to go as deep as possible into the chase and hook up that curbing on the left-hand side and make your way on through, but there's a lot more to it than that. These cars like to curb hop as much as any touring car does, but those curbs down at the chase, you don't want to look at them the wrong way, let's just say. Madison down, though, he's had plenty of opportunities to get that right, and with only 6 laps done in pre-qualifying to get themselves on the grid for this event, well, they're already on the back foot slightly, but a back foot for Madison down is still a stellar record for any other driver.
Well, Madison Down arguably stands as one of the great Australian touring car drivers on iRacing. Just to go back a second, you know Brenton Hobson's in 6th position. We don't need to point that out for you.
Ha
the number 77 that needs to find some times, because Madison, in the last 2-3 years, hasn't found the form that he had 2011, 2012 when he was dominating races. He now needs to find that once again here at the mountain. He's still in a title fight. He knows he's in a title fight, and he's got to take it to the ERT boys, Ethan Grigault and Jared Filsell, if he wants to pick up a SCOPS title. Now he heads himself to turn 1, and this lap has got to be good. Neat through turn 1, and Madison Down, VRS driver coach, has seen this lap so many times before. He's done it so many times he could do it in his sleep, but now he's got to do it when it matters most as he drives up the hill towards Griffin's Bend at turn 2. At the moment, Madison Down probably setting himself up nicely for a good lap, but he's got to go up against a former teammate, someone he's raced with so well, someone he knows that he's raced against so many times before and raced with in Enduros. Up the hill through turn 4 here at the cutting. Not bad here from Madison Down. What's the time he's looking for? 47 flat. He hits the sector mark. 47.3 again, 3/10 down.
Yeah, that lap from Burton is looking more and more unassailable as time goes on. That's that first sector really taking it out of these drivers when they start their laps. But we've seen drivers match Burton across the top, and Madison Down across the top is amazing to watch. You see his car stays in contact with the road just about every single inch of the way. Barely any protests from the car. Second sector then, 30.333, so better than Burton, but he's still down on the main time.
He is. He's down by just 2.5 tenths of a second, a quarter of a second almost exact. But this is good enough for second at the moment, which I think Trans-Tasman will be very happy with. They've got one more vehicle after this, that being the effort of Hampstead and Maloney, who will be trying to go through. There's just 4 vehicles after this. Trans-Tasman, Evolution Racing Team, and Logitech G Altus Esports on the brakes into the chase. Comes Madison, and can he find the legendary lap time that his status commands? He needs 2.5 tenths in his final sector in conditions which really do not suit him. Final corner comes along. What can Madison find? Little wiggle on the exit. Crosses the line. 2:05.850. It's good enough for second at the moment. He dropped to 10th in the final stages, but Madison, crucially, will go no lower than 6th place.
That's a good time from Madison, all things considered. But I do think that the lack of cloud cover on the circuit at the moment is playing a factor in these times. Brady Myers up next in the other Zero car, driving with Forzan El Nabi, who won the race last year with Ross Rizzo for Trick. There's a lot riding on these guys. Myers has been one of those drivers that started out as one of the young guns for Progression Racing Australia, taken up by TTL Esports and nurtured there. And once that team collapsed, it was through to zero for Brady, and he's certainly showing more potential than ever.
Wow. Keep this in mind. When the Zero Esports blue car qualified, they qualified the car through Forzan El Nabi. Now that they're going for the shootout, they've changed driver to Brady Myers. How telling is that going to be? They're effectively icing Zero Esports blue here, are icing Brady Myers in one lap. You haven't had any of the hour of practice at all to get yourself accustomed to conditions. What can you do to get ourselves up forward? He's really just sitting, waiting, looking to get this lap time underway as the final bastion of hope for Omen Zero Esports Blue and what they want to be able and capable of doing as they make their way to turn 1 here of this Hell's Corner. Nice and narrow as he goes through, gets some curve, but he slides through the exit of the corner. That's not going to be helpful for Brady if he wants to try and push and try and get himself through. If he wants a dynasty with Omen Zero Esports Blue, then he's got to be less Brady Myers at the moment and more Tom Brady at this stage. On the brakes, up into turn number 2. What can Brady Myers find through here? He's so neat and narrow, but again, little wiggle on the exit. Maybe he's compensating ever so slightly. Maybe he's just making sure that he's not making contact. Maybe he did need those laps of practice. He heads through turn 4 up at the cutting. What does he need at the moment? This might not be the best time in the world. We'll see what it is. 47.1 though. He's a lot closer than most.
Yeah, much closer than most. Only a tenth and a bit behind Jake Burton's time at the moment. So this is where it could all either come unstuck or come together for Brady Myers across the top. Nice clean lines through McPhillamy Park. No complaints from the car at all. We did see some squirreliness under throttle, but it seems like the corner entry issues that we saw Brett Loxton dealing with are not present on this machine. The rear end looks very nice on entry, but it's on exit that we'll need to be careful of. He is down on Burton now, or actually up on Burton if you want to talk in terms of times. He's only got a few corners to go, Sperry. This could be it.
Well, he's there by thousandths at the moment, hundreds and thousandths. That's all he's got left. Brady Myers was so good down the mountain. Now he's got to make sure this works. Jake Burton was sensational in this final sector. This is where he got his lap together. No one's been within a tenth and a half of Jake Burton through here, but maybe Brady can. Maybe Brady Myers can as he comes out of the chase and pushes towards Murray's corner. What does Brady Myers have left in the pocket as he rounds that final section? He's nice and neat through here. Cross the line, goes Omen Zero Esports Blue, 205.444, 2000's clear. Omen, take the lead.
Wow, great lap from Brady Myers. You know, that was a masterclass, I think, in how to deal with this circuit on your own. I mean, Burton's first and last sector times, it seemed no one would be able to match them, but Brady managed to put it all together, didn't he?
Oh, he did it, and he did it so well also. He made sure he got the lap time in, but the track is now starting to fall a little bit into shadow in the opening section of the lap. What can Evolution Racing Team find? First and foremost, Ethan Grigg Galt. And this is going to be the key test here for young Ethan. He knows that he is in a title fight and he wants to push at every single step of the way up to that level where he can say, I'm a better driver in this team than Jared Filsell is. He hasn't had much luck of doing so this season. Has a couple of wins to his name, but not much more than that, and has been playing damage limitation all season long. Now, what can you find as you get yourself geared up for one big lap time? And you can see how through this section the track is fading, the track is getting darker, and this is going to be a massive lap for the number 15 team as they look to challenge not only the 097 Omen Zero Esports Blue and the 33s this 2015 powered by Virtual Racing School cars, but also the two cars that will be going at it. Sorry, no, I lie. The three cars going at it behind him through turn number one. Slightly missed apex, but getting a good, nice run on the exit. Clips a bit of grass, though. Has he caught the instant point? No, he hasn't, because he's continuing to go on. We'd have seen him pull over to the side and say, I'm done with this, if he had got that incident point. So up the hill he goes, looking for turn number two. What can Ethan Griggolt find here through this section? He's neat in, he used all the track there on that entry point, and on the exit point, all the way to the wall and a bit more. He's giving everything here from this lap. Turn three comes up next, up the hill and four into the cutting, and he's nice and narrow again. This is looking solid at the moment from Ethan Griggolt. 47.1 the time to beat here on this opening sector, and he's up by half a tenth.
Half a tenth is all he needs, I think, because the track is majorly in shadow at the moment. There's a couple of clouds that have come over and blocked the sun's rays. Brady Myers didn't have as much of that luxury as Ethan Griggolt has at the moment. It's going to be a nice, cool track for him out there at the moment. And look at how stable he is through the S's. No complaints from the car whatsoever. So the second sector line then coming up, a 30.367. He's down on the time, but he's still got one sector to go. It starts with this throttle application and a forest elbow, almost getting into the wall. A little bit of sliding for good measure.
Well, this is trouble for Griggolt. He's a tenth and a half down, and Omen aced this final section. They managed to hemorrhage only a tenth and a half and stayed ahead of Jake Burton and Sam Sutton. Now Ethan Griggolt and Ian Ford can only watch on. The track has dropped again to 40 degrees now, down to 39. This track is cooling and cooling and cooling. It's 5 degrees lower than what it was at the start of this with Emily Jones. Now the push to the line comes for Ethan Griggolt through the final corner. Has the track come back to him? Has the car come back to him? Final corner comes, and Ethan Griggolt, 2:05.5's only good enough for third. He's a tenth back.
Oh, it all came apart in the final sector once again. And a slide into the final corner as well. Griggolt's rear end complaining just slightly there at the final moment, but goodness me, only a tenth and a bit separating him from Brady Myers' top time. Now we move to the number 29, Richard Hampstead and Jake Maloney. Maloney, another half of the 2015 winning duo with Sam Sutton. And those guys certainly know how to wheel a car around here for 161 laps. Richard Hampstead's made an appearance in more than one top 15 shootout. And it's all down to him to see what he can do coming up to the great race tomorrow. I'm expecting something big from Hammer.
On inaugural SCOPS champion, That is what Richard Hampstead holds in his back pocket. He wants to make sure that this lap is testament and proof as Mount Panorama becomes the next big testing point. Only 2 vehicles go behind him. He knows what he needs to do. 2:05.4, the time to beat. Richard Hampstead, what do you have left? Some say that he's been resting on his laurels a little bit over the last couple of seasons. Well, now's the time to prove it. New team, new eyes, new watching, and he knows what he's good at. He knows what he's capable of. He's got to go out there and put the lap of his life together over 6.2 kilometers. He was nice through that opening corner. Now up the hill, past the houses on the right-hand side, and up and down and up again into Griffin's Bend. Comes along all of the track used on the left-hand side, and through this next right-hander. He's nice on the curb, and he's not using much on the exit either, which means that this is a very, very good opening sector from him. Up through the cutting once again, and he's using all of that track once more, but he misses the apex. He locked up, and there's going to be a huge struggle up the hill through this exit section. He may have just bottled the lap. 47.1 looking at, it's still a 47.3 though. He's still got a half shot.
Still got a half shot indeed, and that, oh no, he's just gone into the wall. He just got into the wall, coming through metal grade. He's done it again. The steering of that car's been knocked off kilter. That's it, lap over for Richard Hampstead. They'll be starting 15th.
They will be at least 15th. Richard Hampstead will be very frustrated with that. He pushed too hard, the first driver to do so here, and he will be the first driver to make the mistake, and it was right at crunch time. Some say that you need to handle the pressure. Well, I think Richard Hampstead buckled over the mistake at the cutting, and then from there, Reese, his next big struggle was, well, I've got to find that time again, and he pushed too hard trying to find it.
It just seems like grip in the front was his issue. I mean, he did lock up coming into the cutting forced wide there, and you saw that he attempted to go over the hill there. Let's take a look at his inputs in the car. Well, he's trying rapidly to try and get that time back. It seemed like a reasonable enough turn in, but yeah, like you said, I think he either got on the brakes a bit too late or just didn't get the car turned in time. But either way, a big shame for Richard Hampstead. So himself and Jake Maloney will have a lot of work to do tomorrow. Although, this guy, we can definitely expect something spectacular from.
Cannot count this guy out of any race at any point at any time. This guy is Australia's phenom. He's the man who has his seat with Walkinshaw Andretti United. He knows that he is one of the best, if not the best, in the world at the moment when it comes to Australian touring cars. This is Jared Filsell, and his name always lives in infamy. Number 1, he's won the championship the last 3 years, and he wants to go and get another one underneath his belt. E-Series on Tuesday, he'll be eyeing up victory for that one as well. But before that, he's got to focus on the 1,000. He's got to focus upon getting past Brady Myers and Omen Zero Esports Blue. If anybody can, you look at Jared Filsell and you say, yeah, he can. Maybe he's the driver that is the cut above. Maybe he's the one that pushes a 2:05.3, a 2:05.2, and gets it done when it really matters most. This is the last chance that Evolution Racing Team have. They've got one car in 3rd position, and now, Jared, what do you have as you tackle the mountain? On the brakes, it's turn 1. Huge missed apex, though, and that's not going to help too much. Wiggle on the exit. Jared making mistakes early, and he's got to work hard now to try and recover this lap and see if he can pull it back to Omen. If anybody can, he can, but maybe there's a weight of expectation that might just be too much on Jared Filsell's shoulders, maybe rubbing shoulders in the wrong circles as he heads himself up through turn 2. What's he got on the exit? A lot of curb. That's what he's got on the exit. Now he's got to be good through the cutting. We've seen drivers struggle so much through this section. He's nice and early, and second little dab of brake as he goes up through here. What's the time as he gets himself through? 47.1 is the time he's got to get to. 47.1, he's ahead though still.
Yeah, a little bit of a slide coming up across the hill. This is where it's all going to come down to, clobbering the curb on the inside, running right out to the wall as he comes up over the rise at McPhillamy. Nice clean line through the corner itself, and once again, riding those curbs beautifully is that ERT machine. This is a image of poise and control that we're seeing from Jared Filsell at the moment. Second sector split comes up. Will he beat it? It's a 30.217. It's the same time.
Wow, so he's ahead, but by not much. But by not much at all. And he's struggling on the exit there as he makes his way down the hill. Has Jared Filsell thrown the chance away at the end of the Forest Elbow? He knows he's close. He's just got the margin. It's so close at the moment between first and second, and he knows it. He can't afford to give 1,000th away to Omen as he heads through this section. 286 on the brakes, he goes into the chase, and Jared Filsell is looking for that magical time as he goes through the chase section. And now, how big is he on the curb? Uses quite a fair bit of it now. Final corner comes along. What has Jared got for Evolution? Brenton O'Brien nervously watching. Cross the line comes Jared Filsell. 2:05.3. What a last sector that is!
That's it. Man, he got the lap in that last sector, didn't he? Fantastic time from Filsell, but I think that just puts into perspective just how good Meyer's lap was, because if Filsell beats you by 1/10 over a single lap, I mean, that's a far sight closer than I would expect, definitely. Fantastic lap from Filsell.
Only one driver now can stop Jared Filsell from going back-to-back at pole position here at Mount Panorama. He is a savant in terms of his skills. He is Dane Warren, and he is absolutely magnificent in terms of what he is capable of doing. On his day, he can challenge absolutely anyone. There was a little bit of umming and ahhing on whether they could make it to the shootout because of the number issue that they had. They were cleared to go, and now Dane Warren's got to put the lap of his life together. This is the team, Altus Esports, that left from the fragments of Evolution Racing Team after the massive 50-plus member team imploded back down to 30. Let's see what Altus are capable of as they look to showcase exactly why they are so revered as a team in iRacing. Dane Warren, this is your lap. Here comes the charge to turn number 1. What does he have as he goes through? He's very, very much using all of the curb. Slide on the exit, though. Got to be careful about that. The good news is he's okay. He's got to beat a 1 on the first sector. First sector time, fastest overall, is Jake Burton's, though. So he knows that there is still 37 flat or 47 flat capable in these vehicles. Dane Warren through turn 2. Little early as he takes that apex there, but he likes taking that line. Doesn't get much, or actually gets a fair bit coming off the exit there of Griffin's Bend. Up to the cutting 3, and now 4. Is he nice and neat on this inside? Yes, he is. Look at the split time then. How good is he going to be? 47.119, the time to beat at the moment. Dane Warren, 47.157, slightly behind.
Slightly behind, but he can certainly claw some of that back. Oh, rear end's getting a little bit squirrely over the rises, and I'm noticing a bit of brake light flickering past the apex. So Dane Warren is trail braking as much as he can, but maybe the inputs of his hardware are a little bit off, which explains why he didn't get the best of runs coming out of turn 1. Still, what can he do? Coming up to the second sector line, nearly getting into the wall. A 30.333 once again. This is all going to come down to the last sector. Is he going to be able to get the throttle down? Smooth enough application. I don't know, Sperry.
I don't know, he's 1/10.5 back, so this is going to be looking at around second, third at the moment, so this is not brilliant. Dane Warren needs a worldie here as he heads through to the chase. This is not what quite Altus and what they needed. Evolution Racing Team said, well, we're going to try and prove it on the track. Altus said, bring it on. And at the moment, it seems Evolution have brought it more than Altus have. Here comes the charge then to the final corner. What do you have left, Dane Warren? This has got to be magnificent here through this final section. 2:05.3, the time to beat. Dane Warren crosses the line, 2:05.5. It's only 4th. Jared Filsell and Evolution Racing Team have pole position for tomorrow's race in the Bathurst 1000.
They certainly do, and what a lap to take it with as well. I mean, Dane Warren, that was a shame because it looked like an incredibly fast lap from him, but just a small issue with dragging the brakes just past the apex. Motum simulation replay then of Dane Warren while he was on this lap, and we get another view of just how hard he's been pushing. This is him down at the cutting. Have a look at the wheel work as we come up to the bridge, because apparently it was quite epic. So Warren turns in, and oh yeah, he had quite the slide coming out of there, just keeping the rear end in check, but that might have cost him some of the time he needed.
may have done. Some people questioning whether there was issues with the pedals at all, as we get a big slow-mo look here on the Motum simulation replay. This is how hard Dane Warren was pushing it here. Gets himself a little bit of a slide. He's trying to gather it up. Just about does so, and he gets half a car length away, not even that, a quarter of a car length away from the wall on that inside. But this is confirmation then of how the grid will look for the top 15. Evolution Racing Team get pole position. Jared Filsell goes back to back as he pulls out pole on a 205.328. Omen Zero Esports Blue, though, a great time from Brady Myers to second. And very early on is this 2015, powered by Virtual Racing School. Jake Burton and Sam Sutton will start this one from third. Logitech G-Alta Sports will go from fourth after a few issues there for Dane Warren, who couldn't quite get it all together. It'll be Ethan Griggold and Ian Ford starting from fifth for the second of the ERT cars. Trans-Tasman and Madison Down will start this one from sixth place overall, with Pursuit Sim Racing in seventh and Mark 1 going from eighth.
In ninth place, Pursuit Sim Racing 1, Andrew Gilliam and Michael Taliancic having some work to do from the lower reaches of the top 10, but they did manage to shuffle the Omen Zero Esports red car of Anderson and Gardner into 10th place. Glenn Postlethwaite and Brenton Hobson will be starting from position 11. Sure that they would have preferred sixth had things been slightly different. Our first car out manages to get 12th in the end. Emily Jones and Kurt Stenberg, they'll be starting from there tomorrow. Wayne Burke and Brad Newman from lucky 13th. Zuva Racing 209 in 14th place. Let's see what Thomas Hins and Brett Loxton will be able to do for themselves from that position. And with the most work to do out of everyone, Richard Hampstead and Jake Maloney in the number 29, not even setting a time. Unfortunate for them, but they've got 161 more opportunities to make good on it tomorrow morning.
They certainly do, and so many drivers have that chance to make sure it all plays up and works. And in for some very, very quick interviews. In though, first and foremost, that got themselves into second. We'll talk to said driver in just a moment. That one being Brady Myers. Brady, second position in the end. A very, very solid lap. You got yourself where you needed to, but ultimately it just seemed that it just a stage too far for you.
Yeah, not much you can do when you're facing against, the likes of Jared. So, well done to him on his lap. It was very good. But as far as my lap was concerned, I was pretty happy with it. Sort of kept as much as I could without absolutely hanging off a fence. So I'm pretty happy with P2, to be honest.
You absolutely floored it through the middle sector of the lap. You found yourself tied on times through Phil Cell through there. But was it a case in that final sector and how this track was developing that was a case of how much am I looking at the sky hoping there's a bit of cloud cover coming over to aid my lap?
Yeah, I was sort of looking at the skies thinking, oh, come on, please come over grey. And but just, what much can you do? You do what you're given and just do the best you can.
And of course, the big race tomorrow. You start yourself off on the front row. Forzan Anabi will be alongside you for that one. Any pressure starting alongside the man who's got 2 pole positions here, 3-time champion, and you know that Omen are trying to make a statement here as their first Bathurst 1000?
Not really. We're just sort of plugging along, sort of trying to get more of a race car set more than anything. But tomorrow's a long day and we'll see how we go. We just want to be there come like 1 lap 37 or thereabouts, and we'll see how we go.
Well, we'll see how it works for you. Brady Myers then coming away with second position overall. Finishing in third was Jake Burson. He stood by with Reese Gardner.
He certainly is. Welcome, Jake. Third place in the shootout. Congratulations to you and Sam Sutton. It seemed for a while that no one would be able to get near that time because the first and last sectors seemed almost unassailable.
Yeah, we got hit pretty good with the shade in our lap, but we had really sucky wind. We had about a 12 or 13k an hour wind, which probably helped us down one of the straights but hurt us down the other. So that we had that to deal with. But as I say, we had good grip. We really struggled in the earlier session. A lot of people were saying, "Oh, you sandbagged," but we genuinely had no pace in the hot track. We really actually thought we weren't going to make the shootout. So, the track came to us without a doubt. So, yeah, hopefully we push on to tomorrow and see if we can get a result.
Well, speaking of tomorrow, we're not quite sure what the track temp is going to be like, but obviously through that middle stage of the race, when the track really is starting to heat up, that's going to be a challenge for you guys. So are you looking for solutions to that at the moment?
Not really, because I think the problem is that it's a little bit of setup, but a lot of it's driver as well. Sam and I seem to really prefer driving on the colder track around here, and yeah, we just we've set our car up for the end of the race because the race tomorrow is going to end probably 5:30 in sim time, which means, assuming we don't get a clear sky and a really hot air temp, it should be a cold finish for the race. So pretty much our race tomorrow is just going to be managing things. We're on a good spot on the grid, so just manage things and see if we can buy our ticket to the end, as they say.
Buying a ticket to the end, that is always the most important part of it. Well, Jake Burton there starting third with Sam Sutton tomorrow morning, Sperry, and unfortunately it looks like our pole man hasn't joined us yet.
No, it certainly looks like he hasn't, but some great racing we are looking to expect over the next 24 hours. The Bathurst 1000 here on the iRacing Esports Network will be live and uninterrupted. Make sure you join us. Of course, myself, Reese Gardner, Jay Kennedy on cameras, as well as a little treat. Sandman returns. Enter Sandman tomorrow here for the 1000. But from everyone here at SimSpeed TV, for everyone across the iRacing Esports Network, for some brilliant action that you have seen, it's Jared Filsell once again who finds himself at the top of the standings. Could you write it any differently? No one ever can. But as we know, this mountain gives and it takes. We know that every single opportunity seems to fall by the wayside if you just let up for one single moment. We saw it last year with Filsell. We saw the dramas he had unfolded. Will we see something of the same, or will we see a new winner when we come to the mountain? We'll see you just very, very soon. We'll see you tomorrow even for action that will take off. And from all of us here, good night.
This is fantastic. This is GT racing right now. He's got traction. He's going around the outside of both of them. Maloney. Oh, he's taken Anderson. Anderson's up to him. Oh my God. Oh, big crash. Oh my goodness. Half the field's going to get rolled.
It's very close. These guys I want to make their way through the field very quickly. Oh, there we go. Oh no. That's massive. This is it. This is over. I can't believe this. Oh my God.
God, what?